Hey, good morning. First, I think Cheshire is unavailable this morning, or she's running a little bit late. So hopefully we'll find out here in a few. There's a couple things that have been going on this morning, legal wise, that I've been talking to my lawyer, which is all good. It's all good, but had to take care of that. So apologize for being a little late. But anyways, I do have Bullinator here. He might help out until Chess arrives. Bull, God, you there? Hey, yay!
I might want to let the audience know I'm here. I forgot to put myself out to the audience. Yeah, I'm here, guys. Good morning, afternoon, wherever you happen to be.
Yeah, I know I get a lot of crap for saying morning, even though it's 11 a.m. my time. But it's people are like, "Oh, hey, wait, we're Eastern, or we're UK, or we're Nova Scotia, or Nova New Zealand, or wherever." It's like, all these different time zones, even though technically it kind of streams from this time zone. But whatever. I get people are Eastern centric, right? Which is kind of maybe a little bit what we're going to talk about today about narcissism. And by the way, I titled this. I don't know if you noticed this, Bull, but I titled this "Narcissism in Three Ways." Do you get the reference to that? It obviously just the diagram we're going to be talking about, but do you get the other reference?
That might be a little subtle.
I
Three
wrote a blog.
ways.
I wrote a blog. No, it's not sexual. It's not.
See. I don't read your blogs unless you kind of, unless it's like pointed to a specific subject that's been going on Twitter, and I've been trying to stay away from Twitter as much as I can recently because it's just, I'm tired of it. It's the same stuff every time I go in there, full of narcissists. Ironically, but yeah. So why don't you explain the reference, Steve?
All right. Well, first of all, nobody reads my blogs. I don't know. Actually, I get pretty decent hits. Actually, I'm actually kind of surprised. It does depend on what I write about. Some things actually do have a lot more response. Like my logic ones tend to do less than if I write something like a response to like Aron. That's actually one of my most popular. But yeah, no, I wrote a blog called Agnosticism in Three Ways. Very very short, and then I made a video on it. Right, because the three different aspects of agnosticism, right? Being the archaic Huxley version, or the epistemological proposition, or the non-belief either way, right? So I wanted to explain to people that, hey, look, this word is used three different ways. So narcissism here, we're going to be talking about three different types of narcissism. Although there's more than this three from what I found out. And I've tried to research this a little bit. We did a part one a while back. This is kind of a part two. But this is a very complicated subject, and I didn't think that we had enough time to do the first part justice. But first of all, I'm not a psychologist. It's one of my weaker areas. So unfortunately, we're going to have to muddle through this the best we can from a completely layperson's perspective, more than usual. But I think a lot of this stuff seems to be intuitive. And one advantage that we do have is that we have experienced these types of behaviors multiple times from multiple people over the years. So it doesn't make us an expert by any stretch of imagination, but it does make, I think, myself, Bullinator, and much of the audience at least aware of these people that have these types of personality traits. And there is actually, obviously one person who has all of them. Bull, what do you want to do with this picture we're going to be showing here soon?
Well, yeah, what you'll do is you'll take the following Venn diagram we're about to show and put a big circle around it encompassing all three inner circles, and just put one word in it: Trump.
Yeah, I think that he probably has about 80 to 90% of every one of these. I mean, there's a few that maybe you could probably be questionable, but I think for the most part, there's so much overlap between these three types of narcissists that, yeah, it's kind of even like in your face too. I mean, he doesn't seem to hide his narcissism. Now, he would never admit to it, I don't think.
No,
but I think
if you ask him, if he was a narcissist, he would say, "No, I'm the most humble person. I've got the most humility ever." But yeah, he doesn't hide like a lot of narcissists. Are very manipulative, so they'll hide what their true intentions are, and I'm assuming that'll come up when we go over the specific types. But they'll gaslight, they'll do all kinds of stuff to to make it seem like they're not the bad person. So
Yeah, gaslighting is a huge tool that they use. Yeah, there's some things that, like I said, that I think are ubiquitous between all three of these things that we'll be talking about, even though they're not specifically mentioned in here. I've noticed, or at least I didn't see them. I've gone over this a few times, but there's a lot of things in here. So, the commonality between a lot of them, though, like I didn't see. Do you see schizotypical personality traits in here anywhere? Because that's usually something that's very common among narcissists, which we'll get into. Things like disdain for others and the inability to form connections, um, interpersonal problems. I know I see interpersonal manipulation. So, anyways, let's put this picture up there so people can see it. I'm moving this around. It may not do that. Okay, so I don't know. Can they see that, or you got to blow it up a little bit so we can talk about each one? Or can you guys on the outside see that properly? Because it seems really hard to read from here. But that's
let me bring it full. Let me bring it full screen for you here.
Dang. Yeah, that actually works. Thank you. Cool. Okay, so these are like the three most common types of narcissism and how they overlap with each other. Now, again, we're not going to talk about other content creators. One, there's a blackout on that for this week, and two, it's just there's no need to, because I want the audience to kind of put in their head who they know that might fit these descriptions. Right? I don't need to like be telling you, hey, this person has these specific traits. I mean, you should be able to like determine it from your own experience with some people that we interact with or have had interactions in the past on YouTube, especially because YouTube is a breeding ground for narcissism, especially Twitter. Oh, like Bullinator mentioned, it is a breeding ground. And I also want people to do this. There's been accusations out there like, oh, Steve's a narcissist. I'm like, okay, under what definitions are you going by? Because if I'm missing something in here, if I'm looking over these things, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't even have this, or this. That one maybe. I don't know how they would ever attribute something like narcissism to me. It just makes no sense. At that point, it becomes a meaningless word that's used as a weapon rather than a actual diagnosis, right? And again, we're not making any kind of medical diagnosis. None of us are qualified to do that. We're certainly not psychologists, but we are saying that there are certain people that do exhibit these traits and there's certain people that don't. And if people want to put the people that don't and call them a narcissist, then they're just using it as a weapon, right? They're just using it as a term to obfuscate the facts that people are putting out and the information that people are putting out. And they don't like that. So they've got to diminish it by using character assassination. And I find narcissists tend to do that often. I don't see that on here, but that's one of the things I thought of the other day when I was going over this is that, wait, one of the things common to every narcissist I've ever met is that they do use some form of character assassination to try to diminish the other person that they're having a discussion with, right? So just a recap from last week, you guys remember we were talking about narcissistic supply, which is the need for narcissists to feel like they're getting something out of a conversation, right? We went over the different types of structures. We went over how they go about to manipulate people, how they always get something out of the deal, right? Whenever you negotiate something with a narcissist, they always seem to get out of it something, right? They get a payoff, it's called. And the payoff is their narcissist supply that, oh, look, I've engaged this person. They're miserable now. I'm miserable now, but I'm happy in my state of being miserable. But I made that other person miserable. That's their payoff, right? Because usually people just get upset and they throw their hands up in the air and like, and they just move on, right? Especially at work. Oh my God, did I have people at work? This is exactly what we talked about last week, where I had people that were so incompetent in their job that they would literally give every excuse in the world not to do what they're supposed to do, right? And you give them helpful suggestions, right? Especially as a supervisor. Hey, did you try this way? Did you talk to this person? Did you file for this? Did you do for that? And they always come up with an excuse, right? I moved for $5. You didn't have to do an entire show for me to get help. LOL. Oh yeah, like Moon is like the narcissist of all time. Okay, sure.
If anybody's not a narcissist, it's Tilia Moon. She doesn't really,
right?
Like she's one of the sweetest people I've ever met. So
she's more like the sun. Yeah. Well, again, these terms become meaningless when people start throwing them around as insults and majorities or invectives rather than, something that actually describes actual behavior. So I think it would be kind of, like I said, we're going to go through these and you guys can just mention, like I said, we don't have to go anybody's specific names, but kind of mention if you think that you do know people in real life, been in a relationship or on YouTube that falls into these categories, right? Or all the above, right? mention to me if it's on YouTube, in real life, or both. I definitely think it's probably more both for most people. But all right, so let's go through these. So this is a Venn diagram because there's overlap, and it basically shows a set of things. So these are the set of fragile narcissists, a set of malignant, and the set of high functioning, and how they overlap a little bit. We're just going to kind of go from the top down from fragile narcissist and kind of go over them a little bit and see what you guys think. Okay. All right. So problems with authority figures. Now, again, when I was looking at this, I thought to myself, look, people might have some of these issues, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a fragile narcissist, right? If you have this, it just means that there might be a problem there, right? So you can't think of these things as some kind of prescriptive things. You can't say, look, this person has this, therefore they're a fragile narcissist. Because nowadays, I think there's a lot of people that do have problems with authority figures because of what's going on in the earth, the world, right?
Well, and you should always keep a watchful eye on the people who are in authority, because most of the time the authority stems from the people that they have authority over. It's not like they're in a position because of the people in general. Let's talk about police as an example. Police have that authority because we as a people want a functional society.
We've given them empowerment, right? We've given them empowerment to give certain rules. Yeah.
Right.
Even though I think that the qualified immunity has to go.
I would tend to agree with that assessment too.
Or at least be highly modified. Right. But yeah, I think the problems with authority and again, we're talking about this from a labor perspective. Now, there are one or two people that I know that are actually PhDs or know of that are PhDs to specialize in this particular topic that I do want to reach out to and basically have them on as a guest at some point. But I thought this would be good preliminary stuff. So when we have them on, at least people know what the words mean, what the topics are. But I think what the problem of authority figures is that it's probably, like you said, is people that are in charge, right? So if you work for a company and you have a narcissist working there, they're probably going to be very have the disdain for their boss, right? Because they're their authority. They want to be the boss, right? There's a jealousy there, or actually, there's envy there. By the way, there's envy and jealousy are not the same thing. Envy is where you want something that somebody else has. Jealousy is you're afraid somebody might take something from you. So, like if you have a girlfriend or something like that, and somebody's hitting on them, that's jealousy. But if somebody else has a hot girlfriend that you want, that's envy, or boyfriend, or both. But does that make sense for a problem with authority? Bull, that is probably more along the lines of authoritative figures that are more of a direct chain of command, maybe.
Yeah, and Trump, to use him as the example again, he had such problems with authority and flaunt. He decided to try to become the ultimate authority. He became president of the United States, and to me that's like the ultimate thumbing your nose, because there's that immunity you were talking about in spades when you're the president.
Because he's above everybody else, right?
Right. He sees it as a competition. He's not a down to earth person where he's like, okay, I'm just a man. I'm working the office. No, I am the president. Like as if president was equivalent to divine right of kings.
That's a great point. Actually, I haven't even thought about that. He does take it as like a divine right of kings, doesn't he? I mean, his whole family. I mean, it's a nepotism. I mean,
right.
It's a narcissistic, nepotistic family, for Pete's sake. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. If you actually look at them, they do kind of treat it like a divine right of kings or a monarchy or some kind of kingdom.
They act like they won the lottery because he's president.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. By the way, we might have a part 3 on this because it may take us some time to get through these. Like I said, this is a huge topic, and we're probably barely going to scratch the surface. But again, I think most people know people that have problems with authority figures. Okay, so that's not really a huge one, but all right, victimized. Oh, this was, I think, again, I'm surprised that this one's just in fragile narcissist. Again, I don't know the reasoning why they put these things in each individual things, because I think a high-functioning narcissist can certainly be victimized. So I don't think this is like super maybe accurate. I don't know. Like I said, when I get an expert on, we can ask. But I do know something from experience when it comes to narcissists is that they do feel victimized. they play on this victimization. It's, oh, woe is me. You know, well, what about me? Well, yeah, I'm sorry you broke your ankle, but you know what? I stubbed my toe the other day.
Right, and victimized. Don't confuse. This is people who play it up. Like, you can be a victim. There are actual real victims. That doesn't make them narcissists. But if you're playing the victim card, because, like, you know, even though you're at fault and you're not being critical of your own actions in an event, then yeah, that's being victimized and playing the blame game on woe is me.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I think that the victimization thing is definitely because they actually play it up, right? It's not just an actual victim, and that has to be a huge distinction, right? If you don't want people to feel pity, right? You want people to be sympathetic. You want people to understand that you have been victim, but you don't want people just to pity you for nothing, and you don't want to make it into everything about your victimization, right? I've been so persecuted. I've been so picked on, because people tend to lose interest pretty quick on that. Uh, but I think if you go back to what was it, the drama triangle, right? On the drama triangle, that they had the persecutor, the rescuer, and then the victim. If you remember, the victim actually played that up. The victim actually was constantly playing that part. It was an actor. The Cartman drama triangle was called the drama triangle because these three types of positions were actors. They're bad faith actors. And so the victim was constantly playing it up to sound as if they were being persecuted by someone else called the persecutor. Then you have somebody else come in and be the rescuer. And then they kind of all change positions on the fly, it seems. All right. So that's pretty ubiquitous, right? I mean, because Trump definitely feels like he's victimized all the time. I mean, what, fake news, right?
Yep, fake news. Fake news is the ultimate victimization. The press is everything the press says about me is wrong, even though, for the most part, yes, there's some things the press has exaggerated, but I don't see anything they've blatantly just made up about him, unless it's like a tabloid.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I don't know. Like, there's always used to be a kernel of truth, but like the SATs, who knows what the story was behind that? Did he actually pay somebody to take his SAT? But the thing is it's quite possible, right? It's certainly quite possible.
He's definitely always been able to afford to do that. So, you know, it's
mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be kind of unheard of for you and I to do that. By the way, I didn't do that great on my SATs. I'm not going to front. I got a perfect score, 99 on my AFQT for my ASVAB. Literally didn't miss anything. But on my SATs, I don't know. I just wasn't in the mood to take the damn test. I really sucked at it. I got like a 1210, which is, I guess, average, but it's nothing great by any stretch of imagination. But I remember I got a 1210, which I think pretty much nowadays would be considered to be, is that average or below average?
You're asking the wrong person. You're asking the wrong person.
It's been so long I know since people that got 1400s and 1500 perfect. I think one person. But I think if people that get like 1350s and 1400s, I'm like, damn, that's amazing. All right, moving on. Helpless. This one I think goes into the victimization thing, right? They play it up that they're somebody who can't fix their own problems, or they always need help from other people. And they always say, hey, look, you know, I can't get out of my situation, that they usually put themselves in, and they play it up. And they play this helpless victim kind of thing. So I think helplessness and victimization seem to go hand in hand.
I would agree with that.
We'll go down, I guess, on the left side. Angry. This one's a little bit problematic. I mean, again, this is not specific to narcissists. People do get angry. But I think that the fragile narcissist maybe tends to get angry a lot, especially in relationships. They tend to have fights a lot with their significant others. They always seem to have a negative disposition.
This is my ex.
Antagonistic. Is that
the angry? Like oh my gosh, she found things. It plays into the victimization too. They're angry because there's a victim. And it's like, well, but you're not a victim. You're creating a problem of your own making. So you've got no one to blame. About it? Well, I mean, she would find reasons that just weren't there. Like, I'll give you an example with my ex. When she met my mother, my ex had four kids from a previous marriage when I met her, and she, my mom, simply asked, "How old are your daughters?" Because we were visiting my mom for Christmas, and it's a normal question. And keep in mind, I was 30 when I got married, okay, and when we got home, my fiance, because we hadn't even married, and this should have been a really big red flag at the time. She's like, "Why is your mom thinking I'm robbing the cradle?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? She doesn't. Well, why did she ask for my daughter's age?" Well, it's a perfectly natural question to come up in conversation, especially when one's considering gifts.
No, I think I don't have a problem with that. I don't know. I've never been married, and um, I mean, yeah, I guess most of my girlfriends have been younger, but not by much. Except for my baby's mama was quite a bit younger. But other than that, I tend to like older women for the most part now.
Yeah,
but,
my ex was 10 years older than me, so it was she was worried of robbing the cradle. Now, if I was 15 and she was 25, that would be robbing the cradle. But
Yeah.
I was 30. I wasn't a child at that point, and I haven't been a child in a long time. So I mean, I'm perfectly capable. Well, if I was 30 and she's 10 years older, that's 40. So
40, yeah, that's nothing wrong. That's
there's
fine.
nothing wrong with that.
No, I was. Let's see. Well, I don't want to do too much math, but let's see. Jill is 40. Yeah, I think she's 42 now or something. So what is it? 8 years difference. And I was 30, I think, when I met her, give or take. So she was 22, I guess. Yeah, I think it was 30 and she was 22, if I'm not mistaken, give or take. But I mean, I have a rule. They have to, even as soon as I turned 21, they had to like be able to get in a bar. I couldn't handle like not taking somebody out and not being able to go have drinks with them. Super Mommy Advocate says, Steve, I just started critical thinking due to a run-in with someone with these behaviors, but is narcissism a behavior or a diagnosis? Like, can it be a narcissistic arsehole be a social psychopath? Yes. From what I understand, it's a diagnosis, but psychopathy and schizotypical personality traits tend to be integrated with narcissism, right? They tend to go kind of hand in hand.
It's not necessary that they're psychopathic or have what he said.
Schizotypical personality traits.
Schizotypical personality traits, right? They're more like comorbidities, things that typically go together. Typically go together.
And when you have a comorbidity type thing, you have schizotypical and narcissist tend to go together, right? Or histrionic and narcissistic tend to go together. Passive aggressive and narcissistic tend to go together. Antisocial tend to go together with narcissism. These are all comorbidity things, which, by the way, I think is in here somewhere. There we go. I see it, actually. So we had mentioned if that's the colors. No, the colors I don't think make a difference. I think it's just easier to read. That's all. So the next one. This one is an odd color, and so it's hard for me to read here. Let me blow it up a little bit on my end. There we go. Unwilling to respond to others' needs or feelings unless they coincide with their own. Well, this, again, goes into people that are schizotypical or antisocial, I think, that I've noticed. They always relate to things in their own needs, right? They don't have the ability to look out for other people's needs. They're non-empathetic unless they coincide with their own needs. And I think in some ways we all do this in some ways, though. I don't believe in true altruism. And I'm not trying to be cynical. I don't think true altruism actually even exists. Because whenever you do something for somebody, there's always some motivation that seems to help you out or be beneficial to you in some way. I don't know what a purely altruistic motive would actually ever be. Does that make sense, Bull? Have you heard that before, that true altruism doesn't exist?
Yeah, I don't know how much I agree with that. It's a tough one to say yay or nay on. just
Because
because.
you benefited yourself. Because if you help somebody out, what was the benefit for you? Well, some people just, it makes them feel better. It gives them some sense of giving back to the community. It's usually something that they've done to help this person that has given them something. And by the way, thank you, Doublemint, for becoming a patron. She just joined Patreon, and I just sent her a message. Oh, if you want to become, I think you want to become a member. If you want to not be a Patreon, you want a green Doublemint, you got to go to the join button on the video. So there's a Patreon, and then there's my members. They're vastly different things. Some people are both. Some people it's one. Some people are the other. I prefer the Patreon only because they take less out. But the Patreon, the members benefits give you more benefits, like you don't have to worry about slow mode, which I do occasionally. You get a green thing and you get the sticker. So, but if you don't want to do the Patreon and you rather do the membership, that's fine too. Thank you, Doublemint. I do notice these things, and by the way, I literally, when I get a message, I have my Gmail up all the time. If somebody becomes a patron, I try to stop what I'm doing and thank them right there and then. That's how important it is to me. And I know a lot of content creators don't do that for some reason. I think it's odd when they don't recognize that people have, become a patron or a member or something like that. But thank you, Doublemint. I do notice.
Yeah, mine's a little different. My patron, I pretty much, I don't really have a lot of benefits other than you're helping support me kind of thing, and what I do as far as the production of all the shows that I do. But at the same time, I am thankful to each and every one of those people.
I know you are. Yeah, and that's why I think a lot of us, we tend to associate with each other for these reasons. We have a lot of commonality. Thank you, Moon. She upgraded to right-hand person. And Moon, you're too sweet. You seriously, you are very giving. And I hope that you're able to sustain these things without any kind of recourse to yourself, because I don't want to put you in a position where you feel like you have to give money or anything like that, because we love you to death and we appreciate it. But I felt guilty. I really felt guilty when people upgrade and stuff like that. The people that I really love, and it's it just makes me feel weird. Although I appreciate it immensely, trust me. Somebody else mentioned something too, and I think I accidentally missed it. Somebody had asked where the Patreon is. If you go to the video description, Patreon is in there. And by the way, if you don't want to be a patron or a member, the best thing you can do, just share the videos. Just share the videos and leave comments. If you guys can do that, that would be really helpful too, so we can get more people to kind of watch and get into the community, because that helps everybody. If they watch my stuff, they go over and they watch other things produced by Bull, right?
Right. And
so that's the big thing.
To get back to the subject, though, everybody, you have to be a little bit selfish in order to survive. That's just how life works. You have to think, oh, I'm hungry. Well, you don't sit there and starve yourself so that the rest of the world can eat. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and if you give away all your food where you die, you haven't benefited anybody, right? Somebody asked if I looked on the Steam Labs. Yeah, but I don't do Steam Labs. I could, but I don't know. Maybe eventually. All right, so moving on here. Inadequate. This one is actually a very subtle one. One thing that I've noticed about all narcissists that I've at least ran across, and when I was like I said, when I was reading over this stuff the last couple of weeks, is that inadequacy seems to be something ubiquitous. That's why I don't know why they just put it in fragile. Most narcissists have a very low self-worth. This is why they need that narcissistic supply. So they portray themselves as very egotistical, right? They're very, very outgoing externally. They're very, very, hey, you know what? I have a hair out of place, or they're always worried about their makeup, always worried about looking, the best, or doing the best, or how they are perceived by others, because they have that inadequacy. They feel like they've failed somewhere along the line. It's usually because when they've been growing up, they probably had parents that didn't really give them the support that they needed, right? Now, again, I'm not a psychologist, so I might be hosing this up. Anybody who's an expert on this stuff, please, we'll definitely have you on if you want to come on and talk about these things. These are just from my layperson's perspective, from my own personal experience, and from reading about these things for the last 4 weeks and stuff like that. But what do you think about that, the inadequacy? Do you think a lot of the narcissists tend to be at least internalized, feel inadequate?
Yeah, I do. That can also lead to self-sabotage. Like they'll do things when they're actually not inadequate, although they feel inadequate, to sabotage their own efforts, and that loops back into being a victim and victimizing and stuff. So it's inadequacy could definitely lead to that.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that actually does sound like this being that when you self-sacrifice like that, it seems to play into the victim narrative, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Let me move over to the other side a little quick, then I'll kind of come down this way. So let me go to the top right. Fantasizes about unlimited success and power, etc. This is something that I've seen with a couple different people. I haven't seen it with all narcissists, but there are a few where growing up they've always wanted to be the star. They've always wanted to be the primary character in some kind of drama that they're doing. They want to be the spotlight has to be on them. And they imagine themselves being super wealthy, super successful, the influencer kind of thing, right? Which to me, I don't know. I don't know what. Do you think you would ever want to be an influencer of some kind of high stature like that? Because who wants to be under the microscope like that all the time? They seem to want that kind of spotlight, but most of us are like, nah, probably not. We don't want that kind of spotlight, because these are the kind of situations where they anything that you do, hey, Bullinator went to have lunch at McDonald's, he had a Big Mac, news at 11. So do you think that's that common? I mean, like I said, I know a couple people that have fantasized, a couple narcissists that have fantasized, obviously Trump, but I think that's probably not as prevalent as the other ones, maybe. I don't know. These are my personal experience.
I mean, it's hard to say, because a lot of fantasies are just that. They're fantasies, and you never hear them outside of that person's head. You know what I'm saying? Outside of that person's head, you may not know that they're fantasizing about unlimited success and power. Now, I'm not saying it's not nice if you win the lottery, but you shouldn't play the lottery based upon the fact that you feel like, oh, I'm going to win this time. Oh, I'm going to win this time. And these are all the big things I'm going to do, and make plans based upon the fact that you're going to win the lottery. It's not healthy to do that.
What about like growing up? I used to have fantasies of like D&D, like you're a wizard, and I mean I love the motif of the medieval type stuff, and so that was about unlimited power that I could probably have fantasized about growing up, and oh hey, let's be a wizard, this kind of stuff. But I was a kid.
Right. Well, and those are child's fantasies, and they're healthy, because it like all kids dream like, oh, what if I could fly, or what if I had superpowers, or what superpower would you pick, invisibility, etc., etc. Those aren't real things, and it's healthy to fantasize about them, because it leads you to think about what is possible. But I think what this is getting at is, hey, you're fantasizing about something that can happen but is not particularly attainable for you personally. Trump is the president of the United States. It was attainable for him, but most people don't have the kind of money it takes to become president, and they don't have the political backing. There's very few people that are actually capable of attaining the office.
Well, look, Trump got a $40 million loan at the very beginning. Most of us don't have that, right? We didn't have a $40 million loan. That kind of set him up. Although I don't think he's that great at financing. I think that he has surrounded himself with people that know how to manage. I think he's incompetent across the board. I know me and Chris Attlee disagree on this. He thinks, Trump has had success because he understands monies and stuff like that. Maybe to some degree, but I think it also has to do with the fact that he's surrounded himself with people that do. And he had a leg up.
And he plays this. Go ahead.
Real quick. Super Mommy, thank you for that. Super Mommy just became a Patreon. So I want to put a shout out to her. I'm so glad Super Mommy found us. She's been loving our content, it seems, and I'm flattered by that. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, well, shit. I forgot what I was getting at here.
Oh, sorry. Trump.
Trump.
Something or other.
Trump plays the system, right? He plays dirty with the system. So like his businesses fail, so he'll go in and start a business, run it into the ground, and get as much personally out of it as he can, and then fold up shop. And that's good for him, but it's actually quite damaging to the economy in general to do that kind of stuff.
Oh, you mean so he's doing what a narcissist would probably do?
Yeah, being so,
Okay. Okay.
it goes with self-centeredness.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of overlap with over and under kind of thing because we're talking about politics, but whatever. All right, next one, hostile. I don't know if I've seen a lot of narcissists that are like, okay, you know what? Let me rephrase that. I was gonna say that I don't see them being actually hostile, like like a violent hostile, but I think that hostile can actually be used as aggressively, even verbal, right? I've seen people use verbal attacks, which would be a form of hostility, in order to deflect or in order to character assassinate. Because if they feel like they're being attacked, when the narcissist feels like they're being attacked, or they're not being talked about, or they're not being acknowledged, or they're not getting that narcissist supply, they will provoke. They'll go on the open aggressive stance, and they'll be hostile to somebody verbally. I don't think it has to be physically here. Again, I'm just spitballing here.
Well, yeah, hostility doesn't mean physical violence. Hostility can come in many forms. It can even be passive aggressive. Passive aggressive behavior is hostile, and it's used.
Oh yeah, no,
often.
I definitely agree with you there. Passive aggressive is a hostile behavior to me. Yeah, is that what you're saying? The passive aggressive is a hostile behavior?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's meant to be a hostile behavior. That's the aggressive part, but they do it passively, which, by the way, is one of the most annoying things in the world. I have seen people that are passive aggressive, and I got to tell you, it just they're the one of the worst of the worst. Those are just you just want to like, yeah, they're leaving alone notes or like stuff like that. And you see it in a job a lot because you're working with a lot of people. So when you're around a lot of people, somebody's going to have these personality traits. Somebody's going to have it. It's just a matter of statistics. Same thing with being on YouTube. It's just a matter of statistics.
Right.
And I'm sure that if you looked into it, you would find that a certain amount of percentage have these properties, these qualities. If out of 100 people, you might find X percent is a fragile narcissist, X percent is a malignant, X percent has overlap. It's going to happen. So if you have a company with hundreds of people, or YouTube with thousands of people, it's just statistically a fact that you're going to have certain people like that. Super Mommy says passive aggressive is like a grown preschool. Yeah, because they don't understand how to have conflict resolution, and so they do it through passive aggressive. I've actually dated one or two that I wouldn't say were full on passive aggressive, but they had tendency to be, and it just drove me nuts.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, moving down the left-hand side. Unhappy. Yeah, it's pretty simplistic. I think that most narcissists are probably unhappy overall.
Well,
by the way, we're going to try to avoid mentioning names in the live chat, but I know what Floyd's talking about. But we're going to try to avoid specific names other than Trump. That way we don't have any problems with YouTube content creator stuff. But yeah, I know what Floyd's talking about.
So do I.
Oh my God! But yeah, let's not mention anybody's specific names except for Trump, and then you guys could, in your own mind's eye, think about who these apply to. By the way, well, let me get through the fragile narcissist first. So yeah, I think all narcissists aren't happy in some way. This is why they need that narcissist supply.
Well, and they think what will make them happy doesn't actually make them happy. They find out later that that's not what's going to make you happy. You're just going to find another thing to make you unhappy. And that plays right back into victimhood. It plays back into the victimhood thing.
Yeah, they think making other people miserable makes them happy, right?
Right.
And in some ways it might, for a limited small amount of time. Again, narcissists tend to think in the short term. Again, something I noticed that I never found in any of this stuff, but I've noticed personally that narcissists tend to think very short term. No, it's okay, Floyd. You just got here. All right, so we'll kind of go down this side. We'll kind of go like this, exact. All right, so inadequate, unhappy, critical of others. Oh yes, they love to weigh in on you know, as critical of others. It's usually on things that are very superficial. We all weigh in on things that are critical of others when we think there's something to weigh in on, right? If somebody is on YouTube and they're just, you know, pieces of crap and they're just saying vitriolic, bigoted, homophobic, racist, transphobic stuff, most people are going to be critical of that. That's perfectly fine. But what I find that for narcissists, when they're critical of others, they're hypercritical, and they will find something to be critical of. Especially when it comes to intrinsic things of a person. Most of us as content creators and people that go on air to talk about these things, we talk about external factors. We say, this is what the person believes. Let's talk about that. Right? There's an external factor. We don't go, hey, look, if this person has a big nose, let's talk about that. That's something intrinsic about somebody that they can't change. Why be critical about that? That has no relevancy to anything when it comes to these topics.
One thing that I see comes up a lot is being critical of someone else's work. Like Karens will say, well, this job is beneath contempt for me. I'm not even going to dignify it with thinking it's, you know, they treat people so horribly based upon their job. Like, oh, you're just a sandwich maker, or you're just a waitress, or you're just a bartender, you're just a
they belittle
they belittle the job, the position, and they're like, and that allows them to dehumanize the victim.
Yeah, it's not just their job, but their social status, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their social economic position. For artists, people that say, hey, yeah, that, well, yeah, that art is good, but you're no Picasso.
Or education's another one, like people who just attack someone else's education level, even though that person may be smarter than you, they just never had the chance to go to school. So,
but they have to use those as some kind of weapon.
Yeah.
They have to use them as some kind of weapon to marginalize, and you say dehumanize. We see this quite often on YouTube with people. They literally try to dehumanize people because they don't want to actually have to address anything that's of any substance that people are putting out. And those are the content creators that tend to have all these types of. They're not just one. It's a lot more overlap than this diagram has, I think, and that's why I would love to get an expert in here to talk about these things, because I think there's a lot more overlap than this, but it's probably so complicated that there's no possible way to make a Venn diagram that really has ability to say this is quantification of what goes into making a specific type of narcissist, because this is very quantified.
I think if someone was actually diagnosed with narcissism by a psychologist or psychiatrist, they would probably exhibit parts of this entire diagram all over the place, but not necessarily everything in this entire diagram. And it's gonna be individualized. It's not gonna be like, oh well, all narcissists have to have this trait. Well, there's always an exception. There's gonna be a narcissist that does not have that trait. But the only thing that is kind of central to being a narcissist is being self-centered. So.
Yep. Yeah. Well, again, they're self-centered, and they're also lacking
empathy
in self-worth, and so they feel very, very low self-esteem that they're portraying to having a very high self-esteem. Now, some of them actually maybe do. There are types of narcissists that do have very high self-esteem, I think. But I think overall, when they talk about that, it's they're overcompensating for some inadequacy that they have.
Right.
All right. So holds grudges. Oh, yeah. Trump doesn't hold grudges, does he?
No, neither does any other narcissist I know of. Just being sarcastic, folks.
Yeah, none of them. Yeah, no, I think this is like to every narcissist. They tend to hold grudges. They tend to say, hey, this person has slighted me. This person has not given me what I've wanted in some kind of payout, because, when we talked about the Cartman triangle, we talked about engaging. And if when the narcissist tries to do an engagement to be a victim or a persecutor or a rescuer, they have to get some kind of payout out of it. They want something out of it, and maybe if they don't get that payout, they hold a grudge, and they hold that grudge for a long time. I mean, we know people that have held grudges for freaking years that most of us don't even bother to think about, but through the narcissist, they probably think about this stuff all the time. They can't get over certain things. If their ego has been hurt, if they've been in any way hurt by somebody, they hold a grudge by that, even if the hurt was completely in their own mind.
Exactly.
Rage. I don't know about this one.
That's a toughie because
it's a toughie. I don't see a lot of narcissists with outright rage myself, but I don't know. I don't know why this one's on there. This one's kind of odd to me. I'd like to know why that's.
I find rage, as a general rule, rage tends to be justified overreaction, right? Like, it's not, you're overreacting to something, but it's not without cause. Most rage has a cause. There's not just blind rage at somebody. So I'm not sure how this fits in, because I don't really, unless they're talking cold rage, which is internalized.
Yeah, it might be, but I don't think it's like blind rage. I don't think it's like flying off the handle. Maybe.
Right.
I don't know. Again, it's very hard to one word what they mean by rage, because I don't see a lot of narcissists flying off the handle.
No.
Okay. Well,
in fact, they tend to be almost, the ones I know tend to be almost the opposite. They tend to be very calculating and...
Yeah, exactly. Passive aggressive, calculating, manipulative, which we'll get into moving on. But yeah, I don't see a lot of people just losing their crap. I don't want to. I'm gonna try to have one video that's not demonetized right off the bat. I'm telling you, YouTube has really been cracking down on this stuff with the going yellow. Weird.
Yes.
I think it's gonna get worse too. I really do. But anyways, that's a whole different video. All right, comorbidity, which by the way we've already talked about. Comorbidity is where you have multiple different properties and qualities and diagnoses that are kind of synergistic or related to each other. For example, the narcissist and antisocial are going to be related. Narcissist and schizotypical personality traits will probably be related. Histrionic behavior is going to be related. These things we tend to see in relationship to each other. So if somebody is antisocial, or they have lacking of empathy, they're basically schizotypical, or they're psychotic, or not psychotic, psychopathy. This is something I see with a lot of narcissists. They have that trait because they have borderline personality disorder, or they have some kind of malignant narcissism. That's what I'm saying. I don't know why this is weird. Why is like comorbidity just in fragile when that kind of applies to all types of narcissists? This should be something that should be in the middle, shouldn't it be?
I would imagine, but it's not my chart, so.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this is probably not very, very highly accurate, but it definitely puts all the things it hits all the points for most narcissists. All right, powerless. Again, this one was a little odd for me when I saw this one, because powerless tends to imply that they actually do have a victim thing, right? I mean, they're helpless, I should say. If they're powerless, then they are kind of helpless. But I think the helplessness is more of an act. So what do they mean by powerless here, do you think?
Maybe it's a actual feeling of powerlessness, or maybe actual powerlessness in their own lives that leads them to feign. I think this plays back into wanting the power. If you actually are powerless, it feeds into your anger and stuff, and it makes you want to find a way anyway to gain that power or perceived power.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, because definitely they do want power and control. Absolutely. Matter of fact, Red's rhetoric one time, not too long ago, actually, he made a very brilliant observation to me that kind of changed the way I thought about a lot of things. When we're talking about power and control, and I've noticed that a lot of people on YouTube, they want power over somebody. If you don't give them that power, they will continue until they try to get the power, they find another target. And I thought that was very astute, because I've seen a lot of people, they want what you have. They want the power that you have. You know, you might even not have power. I have none, but they perceive it as for some reason. Right? I don't know why, but they perceive certain people to have certain power, even though there's no power to be had there. But they perceive it to be the case. If you're successful,
or the power is so limited and as to be not something coveted and limited and common too, like a common thing, a common power dynamic is manager employee. Well, you know, if you've been around the workplace long enough, you know management is really only just a step up from your average employee anyway in most places. And they don't have a lot of power. They're more middlemen and policy enforcers.
Yes.
But a narcissist will sit in a place of that limited power and act like they're the king of the world.
Oh, that's a good point. Because I've been all over the gamut. I mean, I started from a part-time employee, then full-time, and then I became a assistant store manager. I worked my way up to assistant DM for the company, and I was also an operations manager. Those are pretty decent positions, though. I mean, they're not. I wouldn't consider them like middle per se, but they're not too bad. But at the same token, you have like a floor supervisor. That's basically just it's basically a regular employee that has a little bit more empowerment, but not a lot. When they think they're king of the world, it's demeaning to the employees, because they're like, who the hell is this person? They're this is like one of us, but they just happen to be a floor supervisor, but they have no real ability to do much. And so the narcissist loves that, though, because they get to they think they're controlling a bunch of people that they're not having any real control over, and then they have the problem with the authority figures of the actual management, right?
Right.
So, yeah, seen that, been there, done that. And by the way, the higher you get, it definitely is the worst. It's weird because you think as you go a little higher, you get less BS. It's just the opposite.
It's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. You're like in management positions. When I was a non-commissioned officer in the military is basically a manager, right? So, that's a management position. You're between what the officers and command wants and the people who have to do it, who you task to do whatever the orders are. So you are so limited in what you can do and how you can act in that position. It's really eye-opening when you get put into that position.
Oh, but the funniest thing is, like, I was an NCO, I was a non-commissioned officer. I was an E6, which is, if anybody knows the military, E6 is not a bad rank to be. It's just not a bad rank to be. But you're not an E7 where you're going to have, like E7s wear khakis, and you're not an officer, so you really don't have any real empowerment. But the E6 is the one that supervises everything. The E6 is the one that does the workload, that says, okay, we needed to say this. Like, for example, I did all the scheduling for our watches. I was the person that did all the scheduling. And so I determined who had what schedule, who had what watch. And so when you're having an overhaul or something, you're the one that's supervising it. So you have a lot of responsibilities, E6, but you really, you don't, if any E6 that let that go their head, like, I think I gave a direct order once in my entire time in the military. And I remember even the guy's name. His name was Schultz. But it was one time that I had to give an order. Because you don't really give orders as a non-commissioned. You can, but anybody who really does, it's looked upon very friendly. And I was perfectly justified, and trust me, I don't remember the exact situation, but you can give orders, but usually it's the officers that do, because the petty officers, you don't need to give an order. You just you ask, and then you say, look, we have to do this. But if the person doesn't follow through, then you kind of make it a directive, and then you go seek out an officer to get involved. But yeah, you can't let that go to your head as an E6, but a narcissist would. We have the one or two people that thought they were hot crap as an E6. They don't fare well in the military, so you don't see it very often as you do compared to the civilian sector.
And if you're going to take something like that to an officer, you're already in the land of, hey, they broke the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is the military laws. For anybody who doesn't know,
it has to be something significant.
like you better have something to back it up when you go to that officer. Otherwise, you're wasting their time, and they're not gonna like it.
I don't remember the exact what it was, but since I was probably doing the watches, I think it was maybe somebody who refused to stand like turbine generator watch or something like that. And I'm like, well, you don't get a say in the matter. I'm the one that determines who goes to what watch. I think I don't know if that's exactly what it was, but it would have been something along those lines. But I remember the guy's name for some reason, Schultz, and I don't know why, but that tells you how infrequent it is. Usually you remember things that are so infrequent, right?
We had some. I was a medic, and we had some new medics, and they were female, and they didn't want to mow the lawn. Literally, that was the level. I was a corporal, which in the Army, a corporal is just like everybody else. They're not even paid more, but you're an NCO, so you get all the responsibilities and none of the extra pay of being a sergeant. So it's already a thankless job to begin with. And now you're tasked to get this lawn mowed, and you're given these people as a detail, and they don't want to do it. It's still got to get done, so you end up doing it yourself, and then they get in trouble for ignoring your orders.
Yeah, that's the thing we talked about last time. It's still got to get done, right? Like preventive maintenance. Maybe that's what it was too. I actually scheduled preventive maintenance. Maybe he didn't want to do a maintenance job, but that's still got to get done, right? So if somebody isn't going to do it, or somebody's unavailable, or somebody's sick, or somebody, is the officer, look, you signed this to do this, like repack a valve or something, or to put lagging on, or to change lube oil out or something, and an officer reassigns them to something, right? Because they're going to take precedence. Unfortunately, they're going to override what you do. It's still got to get done, and so you have to do it. Or worse is if the person you assign it, and you go to check up on them, and they're incompetent and they didn't do it right, and
you got to fix it,
and they can't do it. You have to be the one that fixes this stuff. By the way, Blessed Nana just became a Patreon. Thank you, Blessed Nana, very much. Sending you a little thing. Like I said, I do check my mail frequently for that very reason. So thank you very much. But yeah, it is exactly like that. You have to be able to do it. But we find people. See, the military, they call them the Blue Falcon. And by the way, I didn't use that term. I didn't even know about that term until I think AT2 Productions, I think, told me about that term, or somebody did. It was only been like a year or two, and I've never heard that term before. But I know exactly what it is, as far as like the behaviors. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we all know what a Blue Falcon is behavioral wise, but I never heard that term applied to them before. I don't know why. It just wasn't brought up in the military, in the Navy, I guess. But yeah, you find somebody who just sucks at what they're doing, and they know that if they continue to suck at it, somebody else is going to do the job for them, and they seem to get out of a lot of stuff. I've seen that happen.
Oh yeah, we just called them slackers. That's like that was our term. You're a slacker.
Yeah, I couldn't see. I couldn't get away with that on my ship. I had a complement of about 420 people, I think, was on my ship, give or take. But everybody knew me. I'd been on my boat 4 years. I mean, you have seniority after 2 years. After 2 years, it takes 2 years to actually fully get qualified. Everything you have to get ESWAS qualified, interim supervisor qualified. It's a long, arduous process. So there's constantly training going on. So you have 2 years of smoke. Or it's about 1.8 years. It's about a year and a half, give or take. But then, and that includes the entire pipeline. But then you got another, almost a year and a half to 2 years on board ship to fully qualified, where you can stand watch by yourself as an interim supervisor. And that at that point you have a little bit of seniority. But even my captain, they never called me Petty Officer McCrae. He always just called me Scooter. The XO called me Scooter. The chain called me Scooter. Everybody just called me Scooter. There's familiarity there, because once you reach a senior level kind of thing, you get away with a lot less. But in some ways, you get away with a little bit more. I mean, a little bit more leeway. But you can't slack. You can't slack. You have to do your job.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, reminiscing about the military. But thank you again for that. I really do appreciate it. For the Patreon, blessed. All right. So next one, depressed. Oh, this one I think is common. I think a lot of narcissists do have depression. I think a lot of them do.
I think if I had to pick anything out of this diagram that was ubiquitous to narcissists, it's they have some form of depression.
I think you're right on that. Although, okay, let's apply this again. We're not mentioning anybody's name but Trump, because Trump seems to just typify the gamut here. What do you think he's depressed about? Because I mean, you're right. I think depression is something that is ubiquitous upon all narcissists. Even though I don't know why it's just over here, but whatever.
Well,
but what makes Trump depressed?
I think he tends to try to flout his intelligence a lot.
But he has all the best words, dude. He aced a cognitive exam. He aced it.
These examples that you're citing is exactly my point. He's depressed because deep down, I think he knows that he is not the sharpest tool in the shed. He's got to know it, and he knows it, and so therefore he tries to pump himself up. And to an extent, I think he believes his own bullcrap when it comes to that.
I really think he's very proud of it. Now, I've never taken a cognitive exam, but my dad did. Before my dad passed, I think he had some minor ischemic attacks, like little strokes, and we went to go have a cognitive exam for him. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think he did that great, but the doctor was like, it's okay, although he made some errors. But I was like, but I'm telling you, he is losing his faculties. He's misremembering things. I asked him like 2 + 2. He couldn't answer that at one time. And I was like, he's having a problem. He had COPD. He had bypasses, and he had a pacemaker put in. But I think that he was having these ischemic attacks of some sort. But I tried to explain to the doctor, there's something wrong here. And I looked at the cognitive test. I know what was on it. I was like, this is not terribly difficult. But he couldn't do certain things on it, and the doctor didn't really have a concern. And this was before we really knew that he was, really going downhill. But 6 months later, he did pass, give or take. But I recognized it because I knew my dad all my life, and I was like, his personality was changing, fundamental differences. And when you ask somebody what's 2 + 2 and they can't remember, there's a problem here. And
right,
I'm very disappointed that the doctor didn't put more stock in that cognitive exam, because my dad did get some stuff wrong. So for Trump to say, yeah, I aced it, it's like, really?
Well, it's not designed as an IQ test. It's designed as a, hey, do you remember how to breathe kind of test, or do you remember how your simple, basic functioning stuff you need to know your whole life, basically, like what is 2 + 2. If you can't do math, the logical next problem is you can't deal with money. If you can't deal with money, you can't live. It's a snowball effect. So it's
recognizing patterns too, like 1A, 2B, then you obviously go to 3C, 4D. It's recognizing those kind of things. Like a person that has limited cognitive abilities of some kind, or impaired cognitive abilities, they're not going to recognize that.
Right.
Or they have things backwards. Like one of the things you have to do is you have a face of a clock, and you have to put the hands for 3 o'clock, which sounds something simple for like you learn in like 2nd, 3rd grade or whatever it is, right? But somebody who has maybe a cognitive impairment might do it backwards, or might not grasp time very well. There might be there's reasons for why these things are on that test.
Well, and here's the thing, like, even though if you get the hands mixed up, that may not be a cognitive impairment. That might be an honest mistake. You screwed up. Sure. You put the big hand on the 12 and the little hand on the 3. Well, that's 3 o'clock. If you do it the other way, it's 12:15. So.
Oh, and that, by the way, okay. For example, like you said, that may not be that may be just an honest mistake, right? People get nervous like that. I had something very similar. There's certain things you just know through repetition. All right. And one of the things that, like, on my oral review board, one of the first questions they asked me, I had to draw the entire distribution system, electrical distribution system, and then I had to draw a plant system, and I put a pump, and I really I put the inlet to the outlet and the outlet to the inlet. This is something that is very, you know what a pump is. You know the middle goes to the inlet, you go to the outlet, and the volute. the impeller. This is something for every machinist mate would know this, right? It's very common, but I still had it backwards because I was just nervous, right? It was but it's one of those mortifying mistakes on an oral review board because it's something so basic, but you still messed it up.
Right. Well, and that's why you miss it, because people get careless when it seems obvious, but then you mess it up.
It'd be like you've done electronics, so it'd be basically like you put a diode in backwards, you know.
It's not going to work if you do that, but yeah.
But for somebody who knows electronics, like if you're building an AM radio and you have a diode as a detector, which rectifies the incoming AM wave because you have a modulated wave, you just want the audio component out of it, so it's called demodulation. If you put that diode in backwards, there's going to be a problem.
Well, you won't hear anything. you won't get any audio. You won't get any audio from your radio. You'll have wasted a whole bunch of time building a radio that doesn't work. Easy fix is to go in there and flip the diode around.
By the way, I'm loving the live chat. Thank you guys. They seem to be liking this topic, and I like to when people learn stuff. I love to learn this stuff. I love to read about something and then try to explain it in a layperson's kind of way. That's what this whole channel has always been about, is relating things from a layperson's perspective, because I've always said if I can do it, anybody can do this. But it's just time consuming because you got to go read about this stuff. Some of it is pretty dry. Not in front.
I think Peekaboo is talking about Trump. He like I said, he games the system. He doesn't play by the rules of the system. He games it to get ahead. They talk about the monetary system that it goes back to what I was saying about Trump.
Sarah has a great question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was done.
You sure?
Yep.
You have long pauses, and it's hard. Sorry, I didn't want any dead air. Sarah actually makes a good point. She says, if narcissists lack empathy, why are they allowed to run for office? That's a good point. I mean, because you think about it, and we talked about this before. Matter of fact, we just talked about the other night that an elected official is supposed to represent their constituents, and if you don't give a damn about your constituents, you don't have empathy, which is the ability, by the way, to put yourself in somebody else's position. Right? It's more than just sympathy. Empathy is an ability to say, hey, look, I can put myself in somebody else's shoes. I can feel what they're feeling, or at least relate to it. Right? You can't exactly feel what they're feeling because it's subjective to them. It's isolated to them. But we've all experienced similar things. Like, for example, we've all had our heart broken in relationships, right? So if somebody's going through a bad breakup, you empathize with them. Because why? Because you've experienced that feeling before. You know what it's like. It sucks. And so you're able to console them. You're able to give them some support, especially because you've been there yourself. But I think for narcissists, one of the most ubiquitous traits is lack of empathy. They don't have the ability to put somebody themselves, because they may have experienced some of these things, but they can't relate. They can't say, hey, look, this person has gone through what I've gone through, because hey, look, I'm the only person that can actually feel these types of things. I'm the only person that's had my heart broken. Yeah, they've had a bad relationship, but you know what? They didn't experience the heartbreak that I've experienced. That's what I see in a narcissist.
Well, yeah, if they had true empathy, I don't see. I that's almost, in my head, that's almost mutually exclusive to being a narcissist.
Oh yeah, no, I think you're right on that. Yeah, definitely.
Like, you're thinking about others, and that's empathy. Well, narcissism is the opposite. It's not thinking about others and not having empathy.
It's self-importance is what it is.
Yep.
They have a very grandiose version of themselves that's self-important, and because of that, they're the center of their entire world, and they can't ever relate to anybody else. They're forever. I was reading something one time. They actually use an example of a glass plate. It's like they're looking at people through a glass filter, and so they can see the person, right? But they really can't relate emotionally because of that barrier that isolates them from the rest of the world. It's called it's actually a term for it. It's called derealization. It's a feeling of detachment from reality and the rest of humanity and society. So, if you ever look up what's called derealization, which is not even on here, by the way, but maybe it should be. All right, so next one, craves importance. Oh yes, this one. They want to feel important. They want to feel constantly validated, and we see this a lot with certain content creators. That, oh, look what I've done. This is so great. Please praise the work that I've done on here. The 95%. But I mean, it's just everything about this should be in the middle. Craves importance is one that I've seen every type of narcissist have. They want to have that admiration.
Yeah, definitely. They want to.
But by the way, the live chat's really in agreement on all this. I haven't seen a single person really say, no, this isn't what I would hold to be a narcissist. I can tell you right now that probably 95% of my live chat right now has experienced these very things with somebody. And by the way, we got one. Okay, so we made it through the single portion of the fragile narcissist. We're going to continue on, but so far out of this fragile narcissist, and go ahead and let me know. Give me some feedback here. Which one of these do I have? Because I'm kind of curious. Maybe the first one. I do have problems with some authority figures, only because I think they're crap, and I think that authority figures tend to be they overplay their importance, right? They feel power tripped. I hate the worst thing to do in retail is work for somebody who has a power trip. But
I would say depressed, but that depression doesn't necessarily link to narcissism on your part.
I don't have depression. I never suffered from depression. My brother had depression, like clinical depression. He was on Xanath, Zoloft, whatever.
I was talking about me. Like, I'm depressed.
Oh, okay. Because I've never had depression, but it runs in my family.
I've got clinical depression.
I don't have it.
I've got clinical depression, comorbid with being autistic. So it just.
All right, so let's use an example. Or both of us. That's fine. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been accused of being a narcissist, but obviously, I don't think a lot of these things would apply to you. I mean, I've seen you be unhappy, but that doesn't make you a narcissist. Like you said, there's some comorbidity possibly, but that's not due to narcissism.
No, but
I mean, you don't crave importance. You're very, very modest.
As far as the outside of that circle, I don't see myself in there at all. I have felt angry. I have been a victim, and I have felt helpless, and I am but that's because I'm actually angry and helpless in those situations. So
yeah, but that's not. But that's what I was saying before. People have been actual victims. People can be angry. Just because you have this doesn't mean that it entails
narcissism.
Being a narcissist. It's just a narcissist will have certain things like this. They'll be a little bit different. Like I said, being depressed is not necessarily a sign of narcissism. It's just that narcissists tend to have depression. It's more of a one way. The converse doesn't necessarily hold. But yeah, by the way, I did this specifically for Anomalous Insect because because of his ex. He's like, I haven't known you for like a week. Although you've been around a lot longer. You've just been watching for a very long time. He's just met me about a week ago. But he says, I've known you for about a week, and it's just shocked that you decided to make a stream about my ex. Well, we've all dated somebody like this. Like
this stream is for all the exes out there.
Yeah.
All of them.
Everyone has dated some kind of person that has had some kind of narcissistic tendencies. Especially in our cases, we've lived with people like this. It's not just dated. I mean, we've had them move in. But all right, so let's move on. Man, this could be a probably longer show than I expected, but whatever.
I recall your ex-roommate.
Yeah, but I wasn't dating him.
No, you weren't dating with him, but oh my God, what a!
I have all those letters still. My landlord was going to throw them away. I said, don't throw them away. I want those. Those are for posterity. So I kept all his letters. The ones written on napkins, and they're all psychotic. I got to reread some of those one of these days. All right, so moving on.
That guy has issues. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, and I guess he's been. I guess he stays somewhere at night, like maybe a shelter, but in the daytime he hangs out at the library, and he hangs out at different places. So my other roommate runs into him, and he's never met my other roommate, but my roommate knows who he is. And he's like, yeah, I saw, Mike hanging out at Jack in the Box, or I saw him over here. And yeah, the guy's he still writes us every so often. How long has that been? 2 years, give or take.
He's still
Oh,
writes
we've still got a letter
you?
every now and then. Yeah, maybe it's been a few months, but he wrote for quite a long time to us. Yeah.
When did he was evicted, right? He was actually forcibly removed.
Sheriff's literally said you have to go.
Right. So that was that. You're right. That was over 2 years ago because it's been over a year since the non-sec was put on hold, and
he wrote so many letters over the last. Yeah, I think the last one was maybe it's been about 6 months, but he wrote.
See, that is not normal. That borders on obsession. That borders on obsession.
Yeah, you saw the way he wrote. I mean, he wrote it on napkins. It's obsessive. Like, he was able to recall every item he had in his room, and he was accurate. He's like, I want this back. I want this back. This, and he just itemized everything, myopically so. But we've already given all that stuff away, so. Mike Cortez says, if you've never dated a narcissist, then the narcissist is probably you. that might be true.
That might be true. Yeah, I can't find fault with it anyway.
Right? Subami says Steve is so cool. The guy still wrote him. No, he wrote my landlord. They were to him.
No, it's
seriously scary. This guy. I'm not kidding. I have some of his stuff, and in his stuff is a card for weapons permit. He actually was busted one time. I don't know if you know about this, Dave. He actually was busted one time, and I don't remember what state it was in, but he was barricaded himself, and he threatened to kill a lawyer, and they arrested him for that. And he did it on a firearm. So yeah, the guy. I think we got lucky. I really do.
Well, it's not over yet if he's still writing you.
He's still in town. I don't know. I'm not really scared of him, but all right. So moving on. Lack empathy. Well, we've already gone over this one. This one's kind of just ubiquitous, I think, with all narcissists. But we see it very common, and that people cannot put themselves in somebody else's shoes. But we've already went over that one. So, for time's sake, we're gonna move on. Feels privileged. Oh, somebody asked, "Hey, where does Karen's fit in?" Well, here you go.
Here you go.
Here you go. Go ahead. You take this one, man. You've seen some Karens out there.
Oh gosh, the Karens. It's almost like they look for a way to bend rules to the breaking point. Like what applies to society just doesn't apply to them because they're special. Like this whole mask thing has brought it to the forefront.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you feel privileged. Oh, I have trouble breathing, so therefore I don't have to wear a mask. But I can sit here for hours on end and argue the point. Well, you obviously are not having too much trouble breathing if you're able to argue for hours on end about having trouble breathing.
Exactly. And have you seen those fake? And this people should be aware of this. People have these fake things that they have written up saying under such and such title, I am exempt from wearing a mask, and it's signed, and it's some church group that's doing this, some pastor that thinks he has authority to do it. It's completely BS. So if you're ever in a store and somebody says, well, I have this thing from the government saying that I'm exempt from wearing a mask, BS. Those are all bull crap. So don't get suckered into that. But that's privilege. That's people think that they're privileged to have something like that.
The only thing that can exempt you from wearing a mask is a doctor, right? Like a doctor can give you a legitimate medical reason, but no doctor is going to risk their license. At least any smart or sane doctor is going to risk their license to give you an excuse just because you want it. You actually have to have the problem that they write about. So they're not easy to get. Medical exemptions, they're not. It's not like medical marijuana. It's more like, I don't know. I don't have a parallel to draw it with off the top of my head.
Somebody had asked a good question. They said, well, what's kind of the difference between privilege and entitlement? I would kind of say that privilege is something that you earn a privilege, and a privilege can be taken away. Like in the military, you get certain privileges. They have what's called RIP. Rank has its privileges.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So privilege can be taken away. But an entitlement, not necessarily so. Entitlement you don't earn. The entitlement is based upon, like, for example, you have a specific economic status. You're entitled for certain things. You're in a certain group. You're entitled for certain things. These are not privileges that are earned nor going to be taken away. That's what would be, to me, the difference between a privilege and entitlement.
Right, and an example of an entitlement to continue the military parallel would be VA benefits after discharge, as long as even
Correct.
general discharges get certain VA benefits. I think it's under dishonorable conditions and straight dishonorables that don't get VA privileges, but I think everybody else does.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing: when I was reading about this back in the day, I found out there's really nothing that specifically says the VA has to be giving to anybody who's just honorably discharged. They do it, they do it, but it's not mandated. It's basically one of those things as available. So. That's the way I read it. Now, again, I could be completely hosed on that. The VA is confusing. Anybody who's ever dealt with the VA knows it's really confusing.
It is. It's. I think they do that on purpose.
I don't know why. The VA has had so many problems over the years, and you think they would make it easier, not more difficult. Now, I got to tell you this though: when I went to go get my VA medical card, that was a breeze. It was like, why couldn't it be all streamlined like this? It literally was as easy as, here's an appointment, go down there,
take a picture, you're done.
And get the card. That was it. Fill out something that took like 2 minutes. It was the most streamlined thing I've ever seen. I'm like, this is awesome. But as far as the actual medical stuff, oh my God.
And there's so many forms that ask the same questions but are used for completely different purposes and completely different sections of it. It's just a disaster. From the word go.
But there's your Karen right there, although I think Karens obviously, typify a lot of these different things. But Karens always feel privileged, always feels like they have entitlements. Mm-hmm. But it's so funny that the internet's now just noticing those types of people when we've dealt with them for a very long time. We didn't have a name specifically attached to it, but now that people have used Karens to typify that.
Karens aren't a new phenomenon. They're just. There's
always been
retail, I was going to say, there's always somebody out there asking to see the manager because they think they're entitled. They think they're entitled to it. They think they're entitled to and this is
I think we've all done it. But I've always tried to do this. I always try to say, okay, if the person I'm dealing with is just they're making an error of some kind. It's like, you're new. I think you're making an error. Can I talk to the supervisor because it's not correct. Like, for example, in Kohl's, I know what they're able to do and I know they're not because I worked there for years. And so when somebody wouldn't do something, they're like, well, it doesn't work that way. It's this because I would train people on it. And they still wouldn't. I'm like, well, can you just bring your supervisor over here? Not to get the person in trouble. It's just to fix it, right? And I would be very, I'm like, look, they've been really fine. They're really great. I always try to give praise, right? I don't want. I really hate when people like, oh, your person was rude or your person screwed up this. That makes them feel really bad, and it's hard for the supervisor too because the supervisor wants to take care of the customer. But at the same time, you want to take care of your employees as well, right? So,
right.
Well, be nice to people. Be nice to employees.
I think with the pandemic, the era of the customer is always right is over. Like, you're not always right. In fact, there's quite handily a couple things where you're wrong if you're making a complaint like that, like the mask issues one. If you try to return something without a receipt, if it's damaged when you bring it, if it's damaged when you bring it back, and it clearly wasn't damaged when you bought it because no one would have bought it in that condition if they had any. It's just people try to game the system, and businesses are now becoming wise to it.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Look what happened when people bought out all this stuff, and then Costco, Target, Walmart, and other places were saying, "Look, no returns."
No returns,
and then people lost their crap because they felt entitled, but that wasn't an entitlement; that was a privilege.
Right.
See, that was taken away. Mm-hmm. Those companies don't have to return anything. There's no law. They just Like, remember when Costco had the most liberal policy in the world? In fact, there's a show called I think it was called Good Girls, that was based upon the fact that Costco had such a liberal return policy. That's how they were laundering money, right? So these were privileges, and so they said no, we're done with this. Kohl's had a very liberal return policy too, but it cost them in the long run. And again, like you said, the day of the old adage, the customer's always right. No. And I've always said that was a bad adage.
It is, because it basically turns you into a yes man for customers, as opposed to a business trying to make money.
Totally agree. All right, let's go into malignant narcissist. Oh, so people are agreeing in the live chat. They've seen this. There you go. Yes, again, the reason why people recognize this is because they've seen it firsthand. They recognize these behaviors. We're just pointing them out. We're just explaining these things and putting them into one nice video that people can go watch. But in the reality is, people have all seen this stuff. We're not telling them anything freaking new. They've all go, yeah, man, I work for a person like that. I married a person like that. I dated a person like that. We've all seen it. And that's what is so funny when people use that word narcissist as an insult to lay against people that are not narcissistic. Like I said, people say I'm narcissistic or Bull's narcissistic, and it's like, really? That's the term you want to use? I'm like, how? What on earth are you talking about? It's bizarre, because we see people that actually do have these traits, and they're the ones that were like, yeah, that person they have no empathy. I got to tell you right now, Bull's one of the most empathetic people out there. I mean, he probably is almost to a fault. He doesn't need to be so empathetic, and it probably bothers him because certain people that he cares about, suffer, and he feels that pain, and that sucks, because I don't want him to be in pain. So stop it, Bull, because I don't want to see you hurt. Anonymous Insect says, I used to work at Office Depot. I worked for Staples, by the way. So I worked for Office Depot, and people would get pissed when we wouldn't let them return stuff they bought at Staples. Yeah, no, I worked at Staples. I know. We wouldn't return Office Depot stuff, right? And you try to explain to them, that's not our stuff. You bought that at the other place. But man, people don't care. Or when they try to, they want to return hey, yeah, this ink. I bought this ink and I bought it, and you could tell it's been used, and they're like, but it's empty. It didn't last very long. It's like, you used it. I mean, how many? I don't know, man. People try to jack the system all the time.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to malignant narcissist. Substance abuse. Yeah, I see this frequently with narcissists. I think this is probably one of the ones Trump doesn't have. From what I understand, Trump tries to be pretty clean, and I don't think he's ever used drugs, probably. But I think a lot of narcissists use drugs as a coping mechanism. A lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? The funniest part is people could probably lay that against us in some ways, like caffeine. Like caffeine is a drug, right? So if somebody says, "Hey, well, Steve's a narcissist because he's a substance abuse because he drinks a lot of caffeine," I think that'd be a really bad argument. But at the same token, I do use caffeine a lot. I do use that as a way to get up in the morning.
That's like the whole country.
Any day of the week, but caffeine, I would have a hard time with. I gotta admit,
the whole country uses caffeine that way, though. Like it's almost
why are we so dependent upon stimulant? I mean, caffeine is a stimulant. Let's call for what it is. It's a stimulant drug.
Well, it's because we're taught, I think, and this is just my imagination and thought process here. Growing up, we're taught that we go from waking up naturally, right? When you're a baby, you wake up naturally. You don't get to, you don't have an alarm clock, I guess is what I'm trying to get at, right? But then you start going to school, and school's on a schedule, so you have to get up at a certain time. And some people aren't used to scheduling their bedtime around getting into that rhythm, so they need something to wake them up. Or they simply spend too much time when they are off getting to the point where they need a stimulant to get going again because they've spent so much time.
It's a vicious cycle, though.
Partying.
You take stimulant, then you take sleeping pills, or I have melatonin, which is a natural hormone.
Right.
But I don't take the melatonin very often. Plus, hang on. I bought the 10 milligram, which is way too much. The average dose for melatonin should be around 1 to 3 milligrams. And so what I do is I actually cut the pill in half, which is 5 milligrams, which is probably still too much. But you can't overdose on it. Like I said, it's a natural hormone, so it flushes out the rest. But they were cheaper to buy the 10 and cut it in half. But yeah, I mean, it's a vicious cycle kind of thing. And I think a lot of us have, irregularities in our circadian rhythms. So a lot of us have always had sleep problems. But I think anybody who's in the military will empathize with this. There's that word empathy. Every one of them will have an empathy with people that don't sleep properly. Because I got to tell you, in the military, forget about it. Forget about ever having a normal sleep. Just not going to happen. The one day you get a full nice rest, like for a day off, that you're able to sleep and not be disturbed, it's a rarity.
And that's the day you'll come down with insomnia.
Right. Right. You get one good night of sleep, and then you'll be awake for another 48 hours. Yeah, people don't know what they're in for when they hit the military. You could try to tell them everything in some way to convey to them what they're expecting, but until you actually are in it, you can't know what it's like. It's just impossible, and it is brutal. I mean, like the whole nuke program, especially. Just you're up, you get about 6 hours off a day, 6 hours off, and in that 6 hours, you probably want to eat a little bit, you want to shower, you want to, freshen up, and then you got to go to bed, and then you got to get up in the morning and shave, because you got to shave every morning.
Right.
Let's
also try to find time to get your quarters or your barracks or wherever you're living inspection ready, because you always got to be ready for that surprise inspection. So you've got one drawer that you're allowed to keep locked, and that's where you put all the stuff you use every day, and then every other drawer is just a display. That's all. Your whole wall locker's that way. I remember that when I was in basic. It's like, gee, I can't even we don't use that buffer. That buffer is there because that buffer, I'm not about floor buffer here, looks good. The one we use is in the other closet.
You have one for inspection. You always have your inspection stuff, right? So you have your drawer for inspection, and then you have your personal stuff that they don't mess around with, which is very small. You get a very small personal stuff, right? But everything else is for looks only,
right?
If you have this isn't the case, but let's say you had like a specific dress uniform folded and everything, and you have it like laid out on a desk or something like that.
Another wacky thing is they're very big on making sure you have everything, right? So if you use Quartermaster Laundry, we actually had to. Quartermaster Laundry is the laundry service that they provide if you don't want to do your own. And if you do go into the military, if you're thinking about going into the military, you're young enough to, and you haven't done it yet, if you go in, use Quartermaster Laundry. It is just so much easier than finding time, because you'll probably have about one washing machine for 100 people, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the big washing machines. Yeah. Or you're talking about the big laundry stuff, like.
No, I'm talking about the ones in the barracks. I'm talking about the ones in the barracks that they give you.
Everybody had to use those.
Right. So use the Quartermaster Laundry. You pay a little bit for it, but it's definitely worth it.
You would put everything in a knit bag kind of thing, and you cinch it up.
Right, but
everything's stenciled, and then you give it to them.
But to be ready for an inspection, you had to put the hangers, the empty hangers from Quartermaster Laundry, up to show that thing was out to Quartermaster Laundry.
And people should try it. Imagine having to do PT every morning. Well, 5 days a week, 6 o'clock in the morning. We didn't do PT on the weekends, but PT at 6 o'clock in the morning. And you got out of school at midnight. At midnight, yep. You left the building at midnight when you're in school, and you have to PT at 6. So the most you can get is 6 hours. Most.
And you got to do all this. You got to do all this stuff in between. It's not just go sleep for 6 hours. It's not just sleep for 6 hours. It's hell.
It's literally a hell. All right, moving on. Interpersonal manipulation, classic. I think, again, this is kind of ubiquitous with most narcissists, is that they know how to manipulate people. And the reason why they know how to manipulate people is because they've had to survive all their life. They've learned growing up how to survive, how to pretend to feign empathy, how to pretend to feign sympathy. And so by doing that, they've learned the skills to manipulate people. And they find and they see people that are easily manipulated, especially in relationships. And so, but people are in these malignant type relationships, these types of narcissistic type relationships. Usually the person is always being manipulated by the narcissist. We'll see the same thing in these domestic abuse cases. You have the romance phase, right? The romantic phase. Then you have the plateau phase and the resolution phase, and then you have the violence phase. There's different phases there, and there's a cycle, and people recognize the cycle. But every time they're being manipulated, oh, he's never going to hit me again. Oh, he's never going to cheat on me again, right? And so these narcissists know how to
interdependent, codependency kind of thing. Codependent relationship, is that what they call it? There's a name. Yeah, codependency. Yeah. It's unhealthy is what it is. Like, if you can't be and exist independently from the person who's actually abusing you because they're a narcissist, then that's a tough one, because it's hard to extract yourself from that situation and get away from the narcissist.
Very much so. Yeah, codependency on a narcissist would be really rough. But I think that, again, they're giving them the narcissist gets their narcissist supply out of it, and the codependency person usually is somebody is not mentally well, somebody that has mental health issues, and they're not a very responsible person, and so they don't have the ability to survive on their own in some ways, and they're dependent upon somebody else, and I think that obviously the narcissist relies upon that. So that's like a very unhealthy situation, because the narcissist is using the fact that this person is codependent on them to manipulate them.
Mm-hmm.
You see that a lot with people that are substance abuse people. Obviously, a lot of people that use substance abuse are codependent on other people, and then a narcissist will take advantage of that, or the narcissist is the person with the substance abuse, and maybe codependent themselves in some ways.
Yeah, it's not mutually exclusive, folks.
Yeah, because if you're codependent and you have no self-worth, no identity of your own to draw upon, this is why a narcissist has external verification. They don't have any identity for themselves. They have no self-worth for themselves. They have very low, or at least very low, self-value, no intrinsic value. So they get their value from other people. They get their sense of identity from other people. And so that's how they survive, through validation, through ego stroking, through being manipulating people and being manipulated themselves in some ways. It's a really tough situation when you have codependency and you have manipulation. Okay, seething anger. This goes back to that whole rage thing. Well, you know what? This one I can actually see. Trump has had rage and seething anger, and he is a malignant narcissist. Although he doesn't have substance abuse, I think he's actually very clean, from what I understand.
Well, seething, to me, seething means it's not you're just angry and you let it out and it's over. It's just continuing, and it builds up inside you.
Yeah, that's what Trump does. He has a seething anger that he lets out occasionally through tweets. But I think he does foster. He does enumerate on these things. He does think about these things all the time. And the problem with enumeration is that it's not a type of contemplation. Most people, when they have a problem, they'll contemplate on it, right? And a contemplation, you want a resolution. You want to think about the problems you have, and you want to not dwell on them, but you want to try to find a resolution for them. But when you have enumeration, you don't contemplate them. You basically are seething on them. You basically stew on them, kind of thing.
You're dwelling on them in vain, basically.
Yeah. I hate this word. It's so funny. I was just talking about this word the other day with Sweet. Remuneration. It's not quite the same as contemplation. Again, speech impediment. I have a hard time with certain words, even though I know exactly what they are.
Are you talking about rumination?
I can't say this word. Rumination. There we go. Thank you. God dang. Certain words, I'm telling you, I've always had this problem. Certain words I have a very difficult time with pronunciation. That's why I went to speech therapy, to learn how to do ooh, ah, eh sounds. the, and my R's I would have a hard time pronouncing. Anything with R's and S's I have a really hard time with. I told you it took me 2 weeks to get down Paralipithecus catalonicus. 2 weeks I practiced that for my debate. No, not. Yeah, yes, there we go. Yeah, remuneration. No, it's with a U, if I'm not mistaken. It's with a U. Dave Delaford, $5. Support this channel. Thank you, Dave. Good to see you around. Hope all is well with you. You've been quiet for a very long time, but nice to see you around. Dave remembers Dave, right? You remember Dave Delaford.
Dave Delafiore, yes. Hi, Dave.
Yes, of course.
Good to see you again, friend.
GDC.
Yes.
Very long time GDC supporter, going back years. All right, moving on here. Interpersonal power and control. Well, I think this goes back to the other thing. Again, this has to do with wanting power over people, wanting to have control, wanting to always be the person in charge and be able to control other people. They don't like relinquishing to control to other people. They don't like, hey, look, you make all the decisions. Which is kind of funny when I'm like, hey, look, if you're better at something, make the decisions for it. And then yet I get accused of being a narcissist. I'm like, I don't have no control issues. It's like, dude, if you're better at it, you make those decisions. I relinquish control all the time. It's like, you deal with it. All right, externalizing behavior. Again, I think this one, I'm not sure how to place this particular one, what they mean by that. I'm going to look this one up. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not quite sure.
And what this means.
What it even means, yeah.
Externalizing disorders are mental disorders characterized by externalizing behaviors, maladaptive behaviors directed towards an individual's environment, which causes impairment or inference in life functioning. Okay, so they're unable to adapt. That's what maladapting. But it's just an action. Externalizing behaviors are actions directed towards others. So I guess projection would be one of them. So instead of internalizing, they externalize. They're according to this, they're disruptive. They have attention deficit disorder or hyperactivity, oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy, psychopathology, antisocial, and ADHD. So these would be externalizing behaviors, I guess. This one's new to me. I must have skipped it.
I guess it makes sense because a fragile. It's almost like the difference between the fragile narcissist, malignant narcissist would be like the difference between an introvert and an extrovert, right?
Yeah.
So a malignant narcissist is going to lash out, basically, is what I get from that.
Yeah, they're going to be a lot more externalized. They're not going to keep it in, and they're going to let it out and make anybody else's problem.
Right.
Antisocial people will can be very disruptive to people. And they think they go out of their way to harm people. Like here, even one of them is pyromaniac, kleptomaniac. Those cause harm to people. Those are external factors, right? They cause harm to other people. If you steal somebody, or if you light somebody on fire, burn their property, those are external factors.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, disdainful, which we've already kind of went over a little bit before, but I think, when you're disdain for somebody and you have contempt for them, I see this often with narcissists, like Trump. Obviously, he has contempt for anybody. He thinks he's at the highest station, so anybody below him, he automatically has contempt for.
Well, disdain goes with arrogance, point blank. Arrogance is in that circle. Yeah, sure. Arrogant is in that circle too. So, it fits. Yeah.
I agree. Okay, so disdain, I think, is pretty prevalent, though. I mean, you have contempt for anybody else that's not of your stature, and even then, I think that Trump, even like the wealthy people that he probably associates with, he has contempt for. Blames others. Again, this one I'm surprised it's not in the middle. Like, why is this one not in the middle? A narcissist, every narcissist I've ever met, always tries to blame other people for everything. It's like, oh, well, this because of that. This happened because of these other people. They never, they not only not take responsibility, but they lie about it. They lie to cover up the mistakes that they have made, and then they lie upon the lie, and then they lie upon the lie, and they think to themselves that probably it's okay to do that because they think everybody lies. And by the way, I think everybody does to an extent. I'm a virtue ethicist kind of person. I think that there are times to lie honorably. I tend to avoid those types of things, but I think for a person to lie honorably is fine. I'm not a Kantian who says never lie. But I personally try to avoid it because the situation that I'm in, people will take things the wrong way. But it's perfectly fine to lie to save somebody's feelings, I think. And when persons lie, and they have to lie about the lie, they think everybody else is doing that as well. I think that most narcissists probably think that everybody else is doing the same behaviors they're doing because they're emulating other people. And they're like, well, if I'm having to lie about this, other people are just lying about it too. And that's just why they think everybody else is the liar. They think everybody else is the bad person who's lying about everything. And it comes across as paranoia and definitely projection, but it's because they themselves know they're lying. Yeah.
That's why they project, is so that they can put the blame on someone else. Yeah. Even though they're the ones most guilty of the very thing that they're blaming the other person of doing.
Yeah. Thank you, Super Mommy. She has to go. Kitty has physical therapy, I guess. So please go. But she says, at Bull, we are learning a lot, and everybody was really on point, focused, because you guys kick arse. Chat, thanks for being so awesome, and we appreciate it too. Like I said, this was a very difficult topic because it's so complicated. This is why I wanted to have a part 2, and we might even do a part 3 sometime down the line, because there's so much involved in this particular topic. I spent several weeks learning about some of this stuff because it is that important, I think, of a topic where you want to at least understand the concepts before you try to relate it to somebody else. So hopefully we're doing it justice. When we have an expert in psychology evaluate some of these things, they can critique us where we got things right and where we got things wrong. But I think most experts would probably go, yeah, this is a pretty good overview, hopefully. All right, so moving on. Rules do not apply. Well, again, Karen.
Karen.
You're Karen.
That's Karen.
They really think they have a special exemption from these rules. They really think that, hey, yeah, I understand the need for these rules, but yeah, they don't apply to me. You know, I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have to stand in line. I don't have to have a receipt for cash. They just think the rules don't apply to them for some strange reason. All right, moving on here, pushing through here. Arrogant, which you mentioned before. You said that it went hand in hand with disdainful and contempt. I agree. It also goes to vanity too. They're so arrogant to think that, it's by the way, their arrogance are twofold. It's external and it's internalized. The external things, I think they're arrogant about what they've accomplished or what they can do or their abilities,
or even their appearance.
Well, that's more of internalized. Is it? Well, I don't know. Would that be externalized or internalized?
Well, it depends on whether they're taking excessive amounts of time or doing something that adversely affects their ability to accomplish a goal because of their concern with their appearance. So, like,
I can, yeah,
I can think of an example, but we don't want to name names. Yeah. So,
but I mean, but we all know that people that spend a lot of time on their hair and makeup before they go on air.
Not wearing headphones to do live streams because you're worried about your hair. Right.
Yeah, people can definitely tell I didn't give a crap today. I didn't really do much with my hair. Sorry.
You can worry about your hair, but if you're really concerned about getting your message out and your audio quality, you won't worry about it to the point where you shun headphones, because headphones are part of the deal with doing live streams. We all know this.
No, I can wear an earpiece if I wanted to, and sometimes I do wear a hidden earpiece, but I prefer the headphones.
Yeah, I do too.
It just sounds better. It's easier to hear.
Some people are so worried though, and we know a couple of them.
Well, again, narcissistic traits. All right, set of attention. Well, again, this goes back to the whole fact that all of us, I think, when we're talking about certain topics, tend to want to be the center of attention, but at the same time, maybe not want to be. Like there are topics that I don't want to be the center of attention on. Don't come to me about it. Don't talk. Let somebody else handle it. So I don't think just because you want to talk about a certain topic, being a center of attention is necessarily that bad. But the narcissist, I think it's all about them. Doesn't matter what it is.
I was reading, and I don't actually read the subreddits, but the YouTube channels that cover Reddit posts, right? There's a whole bunch of YouTube channels, and they just read the Reddit, and maybe put a little bit of commentary in it. But there seems to be this prevalence of it's a base example. Hey, I'm getting married. It's my wedding day, and then somebody who is a narcissist will propose at someone else's wedding.
Oh, that's tacky as crap, man.
It's tacky as hell, and it shifts the focus completely away from the people who just got married and are typically footing the bill for the wedding. So, that's just an example of this behavior, right?
Yep, it's tacky. Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. All right, treats others as audience. Okay, well, we're all guilty as that because, well, we have an audience.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they actually are an audience, it's okay to treat them like an audience. But if they're not there to be your audience, like they're just there, like in a store is a perfect example. If you're there to shop, most people when they go to the store, at least I'm this way, I don't want to spend any more time in that store than I have to. I want to get in, buy what I want to buy, and get out. I don't want to be waylaid by somebody in there by a Karen throwing a fit at the register because her coupons are expired. And I don't want her to bring me into that. I don't want her to address me while she's throwing her fit. And they'll do that. They'll bring, you saw it, didn't you? You saw what he did. Yeah. Or, that kind of stuff. That's just...
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I think that a lot of people, because of the Cartman drama triangle, how they're actors,
Mm-hmm.
they're dishonest agents. When you're a dishonest agent or dishonest actor, you do treat they do treat others as an audience. They're doing they're LARPing or they're betraying themselves to be a victim or a persecutor or a rescuer to an audience.
Mm-hmm.
It all seems to have consilience with each other. It all blends together because they don't treat people like humans. They don't treat people as people. They treat them as an audience that they're doing a show for. And I don't mean like a show like this with an actual audience. I mean that they are pretending to be something other than what they are. Like they're pretending, or at least hyper pretending, to be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's see if we think we can muddle through these. All right, so moving on. And by the way, we'll get to the middle part last. Okay, so articulate. Depends. I've seen people that are very articulate to be a narcissist, but then again, Trump is not articulate. He's probably the exception on here. He's not a high-functioning narcissist, by the way. He's more indignant, if anything, and fragile. But for a high-functioning narcissist, they would be articulate. Trump's not that, and there are a lot of people that, as Trump, they trip over like their own speeches. Like when he has a teleprompter, if he doesn't have the ability to read off that teleprompter, he's just screwed. So he's not articulate. But certain
I
ones
would
are
say
very
I would say a good example of a high functioning narcissist would have been Adolf Hitler.
okay. Yeah, he's very articulate.
He was very articulate, energetic, outgoing, all this stuff that's on there, except maybe sexually seductive. I don't find Hitler particularly attractive.
No. And if you did, keep it to yourself. But yeah, but I think that see, one of the things, and I don't know if it's on here. They have what's called transient psychotic episodes or transient psychotic disorder. When certain people that have a transient psychotic disorder can have incoherent speech or incomprehensibility, and I see that with Trump. every so often he just goes in this weird ramble of incoherency. That's actually a thing that is related to narcissism, and is a brief psychotic disorder where they have some kind of dissociation or transient psychotic episode, where they possibly could have delusions, or even hallucinations, but also what's entailed of that is this incoherent speech that we see from Trump. So just throwing that out there. All right, moving on here. Interpersonally comfortable. I'm not quite sure what that one actually was.
Interpersonally comfortable, that means this goes back to manipulation and gaslighting, I think, because a high functioning narcissist is gonna they're gonna be slick, right? They're gonna be the kind of person that pulls the wool over someone's eyes easily, and people fall for it like a con artist. A con artist is, they play their part really well, and if they're in for a really long con, that's that's something that, you know, they're comfortable doing that to other people, and they're comfortable in social situations just playing that con out.
Do you think that the interpersonally comfortable also relates to certain things that they try to get people to relate to them? For example, using like, look, I'm gay. I'm not gay, but to say if I was gay, I want other people that are gay to relate to me. I'm comfortable with that particular thing, and that's a group that I'm going to try to manipulate. If I am a parent, so I'm going to go after parents that have kids that I can manipulate. That's what I would see for a narcissist. If I'm going to guess what this means, because I'm trying to look it up, because I skipped this one for some reason, so I was unprepared. Sorry, I thought I hit most of these, but there's a lot of these. I try to do research on each one, but this one I must have missed. I think it's because it's hard to read for me. It's green, kind of green, lime green, but because that what it means. It could be like they're using an interpersonal relationship of commonality with somebody that they're comfortable with, their comfort level there, that they can use to manipulate. Maybe? I don't know.
Maybe.
That was hard. All right. Highly self-critical. Yes and no. The high-functioning narcissist, I think, is highly self-critical in certain regards, but not, like, for example, again, Trump is not a high-functioning narcissist. He's not self-critical about anything. I think a lot of people that have narcissists are probably self-critical internalized, but I don't know if they externalize it often.
No, in fact, I would think that would go back to part of the being able to manipulate is knowing your own faults and how to play.
Yeah, but not articulating them, not exposing them, because to a high-functioning narcissist, it seems, that is self-critical, that knows they have low self-worth, low self-value. They don't want other people to know what their insecurities are.
For crying
out
all loud. What is going on? Oh, it's 4.
Busy.
It's 4. That's all the people going live. That's all that is. It's a bunch of people went live at 4, and I'm just getting the notifications. Sorry, folks.
Anybody going live? Yeah, weird. I'm subscribed to the same people you are. I thought it was, but
not all of them. Other people.
That's fine. Hey, dude, whatever you get your freak on, man. But good adaptive functioning. Yes, this one I think is critical for high functioning narcissists. They are adaptive. They've learned to be adaptive. They learned how to survive by being adaptive, and so they know how to basically roll with the punches. They basically know how to maneuver and circumvent these things. We're just going to kind of blow through these. So outgoing, yeah. Well, a high-functioning narcissist is very outgoing, at least externalized. Even though they have a lot of internalized stuff, they are very, very expressive as far as things. I don't like. I hate to use certain traits like gender or sexuality, but I think a high-functioning narcissist uses things like that to their advantage.
Oh yeah, it even has sexually seductive as one of the things. So
yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's intrinsic to a high functioning narcissist, is that they'll use things like sexuality and LGBTQ plus movements and stuff like that to their advantage, because they're high function. They may not think themselves that way. Some of them do, some of them may not, but they will definitely portray that. They may not think themselves very attractive. They may not think themselves seductive, but they'll externalize it because maybe they were picked on as a child. Maybe they were overweight. They had acne, or they had something that was picked on as a kid. So they feel low self-worth. So they overcompensate for it.
Yeah.
Insightful. I think this one's actually a very big one, actually, and the reason why is they have to be insightful because they have to know how to read people, and they have to know how to use that against that person. So they have to have insight.
The insight and the self-critical kind of go together. Being insightful and self-critical.
Yeah. Energetic. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's kind of ubiquitous. I mean,
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it. Expresses emotions and feelings in a theatrical way. Well, this is histrionics, right? These are people that over the top. For example, I've seen narcissists that will make a video where you're just watching going, is this satire? I mean, you could tell that they're not really meaning it. For example, if I told my audience, hey audience, I'm going to start a, OnlyFans? Yeah, OnlyFans, or what the hell the other one? I don't know. But you know what? I really want to connect with you all. I really want you a part of my life because I love you all. You are all the reason for my existence. It's that kind of weird narrative that I hear from certain narcissists. That's very theatrical.
Well, this is why I mentioned Hitler too, because if you think about his speeches to rile the people up, right?
They're over the top.
They're over the top. He's up there shaking his hands. He's got his eyes wide open. He's that goes with the energetic, and he treats others as the audience. Well, he's got a stadium full of people. He's definitely got an audience, and it worked. It definitely worked.
It worked, and people. It's so funny is people could recognize it too, and they go, "Yeah, this person's like completely full of crap. They're acting, but they don't care." Right. It's weird. But okay, so moving on. This one's a big one too. Intolerant to human defects. I see a lot of narcissists. Again, plastic surgery, Botox, corrective surgeries, and I don't mean like just like corrective like for like vision, but I mean to a
eugenics.
Yeah, you can't have any kind of difference. You can't. Oh, well, this person has a human defect. Therefore they're less than human. And by the way, those are the things that are intrinsic to a person that people will try to mock as a weapon. Narcissists especially will do that. Although they will try to correct any kind of defect with themselves because I have a hair out of place, or I got a wrinkle. I mean, that definitely is a sign of a high functioning narcissist. They always want to look the best. They always have to it's all about image. Their image they're portraying to somebody else, even if they have low self-esteem. It's still about the image that they have to somebody else. And by the way, did the live chat halt, or has just been very slow? It was going by really fast, and all of a sudden it just stopped. And I don't know if that's a problem on my end or people just being quiet.
Last message I have is from Ash at 4:05. Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe that's good. Maybe they're just all highly hyper focused on this.
That's good.
Or they're bored. One or the other. Uses narcissism as a motivation. Not quite sure what this one is, though. Uses narcissism as a motivation. I don't know what to say on this one, to be honest with you. Narcissism as a motivation. Yeah, I'm going to have to skip this one, because I really have no input on this.
I don't either. It's a bizarre one.
That's okay. Haughty. Okay, well, that one, I think, obviously, I think a lot of people that do have haughty thoughts are arrogant. They feel superior to other people. They look down on other people. They're content. They have a disdain for people that have less social class, especially. Oh, look at this person. Oh, they're poor. Oh, look at this person. They're homeless. Look at this person. They can't afford this. It's a very haughty attitude that you see from these narcissists. Anybody who talks about anybody else's social class, I have a problem with. This is a big problem I had with people years ago. I didn't like the way they're talking about people's social class. I mean, look, how you live, where you live, what kind of job you have. Those are just weapons. If you have to resort to saying, oh, well, this guy's just a fry cook, what does he know about this particular subject? That's only applicable if somebody is trying to be an expert. If you say, look, I'm an expert in this topic, and you're like, no, you're a fry cook. That's perfectly fine. If you say, hey, look, I'm a fry cook, but I happen to have a hobby in this particular topic, and I want to talk about it as a layperson. Awesome. That's when somebody's being, a narcissist or a manipulative is saying, look, well, what do you know about this topic? You're just a fry cook. Well, that's rude. That's disdainful. That's haughty.
Mm-hmm.
But people are testing. No, it still works. Thank you, though. People are doing tests in the live chat. Okay, that's funny. But you got anything to add to that one?
No, it's the high and holier than thou attitude, definitely.
I don't know how busy you are. But do you think we can make this till like 1:30 my time? 20 more minutes? That'd be a full 2.5 hour show, even though it's longer than usual. But a lot to go over here. You free for 20 minutes? Okay. Competitive with others. Oh yes.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing about narcissists: they see a competition, even when there's no competition to be had. Because like on YouTube, sure, it's competitive, honestly. And there's only so many resources to go around. We share a lot of audiences. But if somebody wants to watch mine, or they want to watch Little Red, they want to watch Moon, they want to watch Bull, we all support each other. Yeah. If somebody helps out somebody else, we're fine with that. We're not competitive in that way, even though there's only like a limited pool. We understand that. But the competition is basically more of a, hey, we all have to put out product. We all have to survive. We all have to have a Patreon and stuff like that. But we're not competitive to the point where we think it's a competition. These other shows are not a competition. I support all of them. If somebody says, look, Steve, I didn't watch your show last night because I watched something else.
Right.
It doesn't bother me. It doesn't even faze me.
And the thing about it is, it's not a limited pool. Like, it's really not. You have all the internet. There's always going to be a new people, and we just
but those people have to come in first, right? There's only a pool that we have of people watching at a time.
Right, but that's advertisement. Okay, that's advertisement. There's always going to be another person that can come in and take the place of somebody who doesn't, or used to but can't, or whatever.
Limo says, narcissism as motivation ties to narcissistic supply, which we talked about last time, yes. If a narcissist lacks cronies to prop themselves up, they will lose their self-importance and lose sight of goals. Yeah, because they, again, want external validation. And so if they have to be propped up by, you use the word cronies, which, is applicable. But they do really rely on their base in order to give them the narcissistic supply that they need, they crave. Mm-hmm. Now, you hear it out there going, well, doesn't all YouTubers do that? No, I don't think that at all the case. I'm sorry, but I don't base my value, my self-worth, on how many people agree or disagree with me, how many people are watching. I don't base it upon that. What I base a lot of my I hate to say it's self-worth. It's not really self-worth, but I base my accomplishments on the messages I get for people saying, hey, thank you for this. I'm now in school now. I've gone back to college. I'm now learning about this subject. I've changed my mind in this. That's how I at least measure my success. I don't think my self-worth is maybe somewhat tied to that. I guess in some ways, I think everybody bases their self-worth on how much they've influenced other people to do something positive, maybe. But I think for a narcissist, it goes hyper.
Right.
They have to base their self-worth on it because they have no self-worth of their own. It's all externally validated.
Right, and here's the thing: that their audience, treating others as the audience is their mirror. The praise, the sheer praise, the unjustified praise becomes their mirror, their admiration. Oh, they're admiring me, so I can admire myself.
Yes.
I'm justified to admire myself, even though I have done nothing of value. In fact, a lot of cases have done something intrinsically worthless or malignant in some cases.
Well, that's they prop themselves up for things, but they do crappy things, and they actually think that's an accomplishment.
Yep.
All right, dismissive. This one, I think, again, I think it's rather common to most narcissists, because a narcissist will dismiss things, right? They'll say, look, I'm not even going to consider that because, if that they're just not even going to consider. Like, and then we see this a lot because we deal with a lot of topics that are very controversial, clearly. But to a narcissist, they'll take a controversial topic and they won't even consider it. They won't even look, just not even worthy of consideration when there is actually an issue to be had there. And they're very dismissive of it. And by the way, I had a whole show based upon somebody that was very dismissive of philosophical things, because of narcissism, right? They think a lot of things in philosophy are unworthy of consideration. So I see this quite often. I think this is something very common, not just to a high functioning narcissist, but to a lot of narcissists. They're very dismissive of people saying, well, maybe you should think about it this way. And by the way, I get people know I try my damnedest to think about things the other way. Now, I may not always succeed, so I'm honest about that. I'm trying to look from your perspective. I'm having a hard time doing it, but I think it's the attempt. So I think I'm not trying to be dismissive. People, I think, confuse this. They say, well, Steve's being dismissive. It's like, no, I'm at least trying to think it from your perspective, but I'm having an inability to do so. And maybe that's my issue. I don't know. I have to do some self-reflection on that.
Well, and another thing that might lead to it is it's shallowness goes along with being dismissive. Like, oh, it's not important.
Oh, that's true too.
Right?
Well, don't they do that with a lot of philosophy? Oh, philosophy is not important, yet they're like, I love science, but philosophy is useless. Yet without philosophy, there would be no science. Science is predicated on a lot of philosophical concepts.
Right, and
but yeah, I think dismissive is more common. But all right, so
and I guess the reason I brought up shallowness is because we are now on sexually seductive.
Yeah, one thing about dismissive before I move on, I thought about this. It's how people are dismissive. If they're really snide about it, if they're really like just very disdainful, and they mockery. If they're dismissive by mockery and stuff like that, that's a different thing altogether, right? So I see that behavior a lot. People to be dismissive by being mockery or snideness. Sexually seductive, yeah. I think a lot of this is something that probably is just to a high functioning narcissist, is that they use sexuality to try to manipulate, right? These are the people that think they're beautiful, right? And I don't mean the people that are low self-esteem that necessarily projected, externalized, but they actually think that they're physically super hot or something like that, or physically attractive to everybody, when that may not be the case. But they try to use sexual seduction and sexual innuendo and sexual things to try to manipulate people. Yeah, I think this is something probably common. Well, not too common to all narcissists, but to a high function narcissist. Yeah, I think this one's probably very, very common. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. And as you can see, there's a lot of overlap here.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the middle here. These are the ones that seem to overlap all of them. So we're going to just kind of blow through these real quick. Exaggerated sense of self-importance. Again, all this ties into that, right? They do think that. Look, if you're a YouTuber, unless you're like A tier, you're not a big influencer. You don't have any great importance. We're very, very low tier YouTubers. I mean, we're D+, C+, a C- average kind of stuff. I mean, I would put myself at maybe a C-. If we go by Social Blade, maybe stuff. But I mean, we're not A-listers, A++, A+. Never going to be happen. Don't want to be either.
Well, don't say never say never, Steve. But
I think that level's too open to the public. I would have a hard time being that well known. I don't think I'm comfortable with something like that. And again, hypothetically speaking, because that's just something would have to have a fundamental change to be recognizable that much. But I think that we have a lot of content creators who think that they are a lot more influential and a lot more self-importance than they actually are. A lot.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. Grandiosity, which would be the same thing. I think that a lot of them think they're a lot more grandiose than they really really are. So that again, and that's, by the way, that just isn't just how they act as a YouTube creator, but in their entire essence, their entire style. I mean, if I have to wear a super nice suit to go on air, that's a little bit grandiose, don't you think? I mean, it's almost pretentious.
Oh yeah.
Entitlement, we've already went over. A sense of entitlement is, well, Karens have all these things. A sense of entitlement. Again, we've discussed the difference between an entitlement and a privilege. Privilege is going to be taken away, but entitlements, they think that, hey, look, I'm part of this group. I'm entitled to everything. But I think that they also think that a privilege is an entitlement. That's a lot of entitlement. Hey, look, I'm entitled to this privilege. Well, no, it's a privilege.
We saw this. I saw a Karen video the other night. I forget whether it was on the uncalled for. I think it was on the uncalled for. But anyway, it's not important where I saw it. But this Karen was in a Planet Fitness. And the state guideline says you don't need to wear masks while exercising. Well, that's regarding outside activities, probably. And Planet Fitness is a business. They can set their own policies that override the law as far as that goes. They can have higher restrictions than the general law, and they don't have to let you exercise without a mask in their facility. They don't have to let you exercise in their facility, period. They don't have to let you in. It's a privately owned property. They don't have to let you in. They can trespass you out. They can say you're not allowed here. They can ban you. They can do it's their business.
Well, it goes into the expects preferential treatment thing, the very last one. Right? They expect preferential treatment. Like, hey, no, I'm not. I'm exempt from your particular rule. But have you seen those signs where they basically? And this is great. I really do love these signs. And these signs are basically like, hey, look, you have every right not to wear a mask, but because you're exercising your rights, the store owner has a right to exercise their rights to not allow you to shop here. You can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. I'm sorry. It doesn't work like that. But that goes to the heart of the Karen and the narcissist who expects preferential treatment. They're saying, hey, I have my rights where I don't have to wear a mask, but you know what? That supersedes your rights saying that I can't shop here. That's it in a nutshell, right? Right. That is a narcissistic type behavior. Mm-hmm. Wow, we made it through all these. Man, that was... This was actually, you know what? This was actually one of my more favorite episodes. I'm sorry Chuck's going to make it. It's unavailable, it seems. But I'm telling you, this was really good because we all have experienced these things. Maybe we didn't have quite the name for these types of behaviors, but now we actually have a little bit more tools under our belt when we see these types of narcissistic behavior to call them out, when we know what these terms mean. And again, going back the last month, when I've been reading about narcissistic behavior and watching videos on it, I've learned certain new terms. Like I didn't know what narcissistic supply was. Now I do. And so I think when we see these behaviors, even though we know what it is, we intuitively see it. We now can go, oh, look, this person is asking for a engagement to try to get into some kind of drama triangle to have narcissistic supply to get a payout of. There you go. So, anyways, we're going to wrap it up. I wanted to spend 7 more minutes asking if there's anybody in the live chat that has any questions on these things. We are going to end it exactly at the 2.5 hour mark. So,
yeah,
it's my OCD. I like a nice even number, even though I don't have OCD. But.
And while I'm on every week, I think it was a unique opportunity for us to have a show together, Steve, because I don't think we've ever actually had a show with just you and me. So,
I think this is our first, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is this the first time you and I have really just done it, you and I, with nobody else?
Yeah.
In all these years?
So.
I think, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the first person in your Hangouts before, but you know those usually fill up rather quickly.
No, but I think you're right. I don't think we ever did an NSS episode, just you and I.
No, we usually had a guest when it was just you as the host. So.
Well, this was nice then. this was nice, good quality time with you. I mean, I people know I love you to death, and that's just not just words. I mean, you have been a staple in my life for like what, I don't know, 4
years.
I know it's been a long 4 years.
But
And I took a shining to you because you were honest, you were open, you were the antithesis of these types of traits in a lot of ways. This is why when people go after you, it's like, are you sure you want to do that? People want to come after me? Sure, people can come after me because they interpret things in their own way, but I don't know what they could even purposely try to misinterpret with you. That saying that you're not a nice guy is like, really? That's the narrative you want to run? Good luck with that one. That just seems self-defeating. Because everybody knows you're a nice guy. Like, everybody who's ever dealt with you knows you're a nice guy. In fact, in some cases, you're probably too nice. And I think that if my only criticism would be, maybe not be so nice. Maybe be a little more. Here we go. You be a little less nice, like me, and I'll be a little more nice, like you. We'll kind of like have a happy medium. How's that? I'll move more toward you, and because you're super nice, dude. And it just, I hate to see when you get crapped on because of it. It's really bothersome, not just to me, but to people in the audience that know you. We don't like it.
Actually, we're in two separate rubes, anomalous insect, on opposite sides of the country. And no, this is platonic love. Even though I am gay, Steve's definitely not my type.
I'm not his type. Look, I can love a man and not be sexually attracted to them or ever want to date them. There's different types of love, okay? I had a best friend in the military that I loved to death. He was literally like the bestie of all besties. I was the best man at his wedding after he stole my girlfriend. Well, she wasn't my girlfriend, but I was dating her kind of thing. And then he kind of stole her. But he ended up marrying her, so I was like, oh, that's cool. I ended up being his best man. We're literally 3,000 miles away, although we will be in the same room together eventually. That will happen somewhere down the line. Even if I have to fly to Florida to meet up with you and Reds and some other people. But once we have to wait till this whole world crap Covfefe gets fixed. Which,
among other things. Among other things getting sorted out too. So.
I will do that. I will have my real ID eventually. I've got my birth certificate. I got a social. The problem with getting a real ID right now is that scheduling for it. So I think they're only doing it by
appointment.
By appointment, and I think it's like 6 months wait or something. I don't know. I'm gonna call it. Maybe I'll call on that later today. Get at least an appointment in, because if I think it's like 3 to 6 months wait, and I want to travel. I want to go to Boston. I want to go to Florida. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching this. Thank you for the new patrons. Thank you for the new members and people that increased their membership. I pay attention to all these things. And one of the things that if you're a member or if you're a Patreon, if you message me on anything, I will get back to you, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, email. 95% of the time I'll get back to you. Now, there are some times where I just miss it, or like on Twitter, not going to front, sometimes I've had so many notifications, I've just like read all, and Facebook like read all, because it's just too much. But for the most part, if you message me, if you email me, you're going to get a response. And let me know what your things are. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your opinions are. I do try to take all into account. And I think that this channel has been doing very well. Just on the type of content that I want to do, and that Boolinator wants to do, Chester wants to do, and other people want to do. We're avoiding some other kinds of content that we're allowing other people. Well, I don't mean by allow sounds controllish, but let them do it. If they want to do it, great, and I'll watch it. But just it's not for me any longer. I got to focus on more important stuff.
Agreed.
All right. So like, share, subscribe, and like I said, comment. Comments really do help share the videos. When you leave comments, it helps the algorithm. So let me know what you guys think. And with that, you got any parting words? You got anything coming up here in the last minute?
Well, I just want to say tonight on Sit Down with Debunkers, we have the Weekly Derp, which is hosted by Quiddies the Sprinkler and Glober Mom, and among others from the Sit Down with Debunkers channels, and it's a lot of fun. It's our take on what a news show would be like if the Earth was flat, or maybe not exactly that, but it's more of a fun thing. So,
all right. Well, I'm taking the rest of the day off. I'm going to turn my AC back on because I'm dying. I'm going to eat, and I'm going to play some games today. And I'm not even, by the way, I always get back to people, but probably not today. I'm going to turn off the internet, email, and everything. And I'm just going to do my own thing until tonight. I got one last episode of Lucifer to watch, and I've been playing my game. I'm just going to take a couple hours for myself. So that's okay.
That's fair.
Awesome. So with that, guys, good night, and thank you very much. This was a really, really fun episode with you, Bull.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.